Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my pleasure to welcome our many listeners, those who listen to us on Radio 4, BBC 7, the internet, and around the world. But also, most importantly, to welcome to the show 4 really fine, skilled exponents of this game who've come together to show their humorous skills and expertise and verbal dexterity as they speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Sue Perkins, and seated on my left, Tony Hawks and Charles Collingwood. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me is Charlotte Davies, who's going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the magnificent Theatre Royal in the heart of that fine city of Newcastle, in that great area of the British Isles, Tyneside. As we begin the show this week with Tony Hawks. Tony, the subject is, oh dear, I'm nervous of this one, the chairman's best-kept secret. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
This was a very emotional moment for me a few years back when Nicholas took me aside just before a recording and said, "Tony, I first met your mother 9 months before you were born." I was a little bit shocked, sick, in fact.
Charles Challenge.
He hesitated before he said sick.
I know, he was so carried away with his humorous thoughts.
Yes.
And the devious thought.
Exactly.
Never met his mother. Do you think he looks a little bit like me?
Oh, come on, Dad, let me on.
Charles, you have a correct challenge, so you get a point for that. You take over the subject. There are 46 seconds available. The chairman's best-kept secret starting now.
Quite obviously, the chairman's best-kept secret is his secret of eternal youth.
Sue, challenge.
There was a slight hesitation.
Oh,
no, there wasn't.
Emotion.
I think that was too sharp, Sue, so I will say that was an incorrect challenge. So, Charles, you have another point, and you have 40 seconds on the chairman's best-kept secret starting now.
Having seen his birth certificate, which is dated nearly 200 years ago, it is extraordinary that this gentleman still looks younger than the rest of us on this panel.
It's Paul Challenge.
I don't think Nicholas looks younger than Sue Perkins.
No.
I'm just coming to that. Sue Perkins accepted, I was about to say. But you interrupted because you just have to.
Yes.
Well, it was a correct challenge, Charles. Charles tried to justify it, but I think too late. So on this occasion, I give the benefit of the doubt to you. You have a point for that. 29 seconds. The chairman's best-kept secret starting now.
During the war, he worked as a prostitute in Dunkirk.
Sue, What did you say?
You know the thing we don't talk about.
Oh, right. So what's your challenge, Sue?
Well, hesitation, I thought he'd finished.
Yeah.
I made my point.
I think he had.
Outrageous remark. I think you deserve to hesitate. So, Sue, you have a correct challenge. You take over the subject. The chairman's best-kept secret. 26 seconds, starting now.
3 Ways Nicky, they used to call him, as he regularly patrolled the docks in a small skirt and high click-clack heels. Everybody loved a piece of him. To Bob, he'd scream, and they'd flock from here and everywhere. For a piece of the man...
Paul Challenge.
I just wanted to say it's all true.
All true. And I'll tell you why it's true. Because I played Dame and pantomime here when I was at Sunderland. So it's an incorrect challenge. You keep the subject, and you have 12 seconds, starting now.
What on earth is that accent? Let's muse on it for a second. Could it be Gateshead or Sunderland or a vague composite? It doesn't matter.
Tony Challenge.
Quite a lot of oars close together.
Yes,
there.
a lot of balls.
Yes, how ironic.
After the remark you made about me, very. Having all those oars there. Right, Tony, the chairman's best-kept secret, and there are 6 seconds, starting now.
The best-kept secret of Chairman Mao was that he was a huge cribbage fan. Every Thursday evening,
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Tony Hawk's. And the end of that round, they all have 2 points, except Paul, who only has 1. And it's early days.
And he spoke the truth about what happened. Sometimes just to be true doesn't get you points in this world.
I don't know what you're going on about. And Sue Perkins, will you take the next round? Oh, I think this is a local subject. Brown ale. Tell us something about brown ale in this game, Sue, starting now.
This exquisite nectar flows down the throat and immediately makes one want to rip clothes off, either oneself or another person in the nearby vicinity. This is witnessed late at night in Newcastle as women wander around with next to nothing, a couple of straps attached to gauze holding their enormous breasts in place. It is the quintessential drink of this county.
Charles challenge.
So we've had 3 thises.
Well,
I am waxing lyrical about this beverage.
You had been, but I thought the wax had got a bit melty now.
No.
And, I mean, not 2 thises,
No,
3
the audience
thises.
endorsed the fact that they love her quintessential waxing there. 36 seconds still available. Brown ale with you, Sue, starting now.
The bottle is adorned with a single blue star, which is nothing in comparison with the 50 of them you'll see later on as you lie in a gutter, smelling your own urine. They support also the finest football team, Newcastle United, currently enjoying somewhat of a downturn of late due to poor management, and Michael Owen, who is never match fit, it transpired. And guess what? If he ever goes to Liverpool, he'll spring back into action.
Yes, Charles.
She's no longer talking about brown ale.
They sponsor
She's
Newcastle United.
Just done 20 seconds on Michael Owen and people who's never going to
Yeah,
be
but
fit.
she did make the association between Newcastle United and Michael Owen played for Newcastle United, and she was waxing lyrical about brown ale. I think, though there was some justification in your challenge, I have to give the benefit of the doubt to Sue Perkins and say, Sue, another point, and the subject still, 14 seconds, starting now.
Pierce the cap, throw it away, and drink deep on a liquid that can only taste like nectar, hospitals.
Paul's challenge.
I think we've had drink before.
Yes, you've had a drink before, yes.
I've had many drinks before. I'm such a fan.
But there we are. Well, with no drinks at all, you were really lyrical on that one. Well, hysterical on that one. Right, 8 seconds, Paul, on brown ale, starting now.
They say to enjoy beer at its best, you should always consume it in the place where it's produced. For example, Guinness always tastes better.
Charles, challenge.
To always.
Yes, always.
Yes.
Always. Charles, you've got in at last with 1 second to go. Brown ale, starting now.
There is nothing in this world.
So Charles, with other points, including 1 for speaking, as the whistle went, has moved forward. He's taken the lead, 1 ahead of Sue, and 2 ahead of Paul, and 3 ahead of Tony in that order. I don't know why I did that silly voice. I don't know. Right, Paul. It's your turn to start. A good plot. That's a nice subject. Talk on it if you can. 60 seconds starting now.
A good plot is essential to a story, the narrative twists and turns that take the reader, listener or viewer down a path one way, then perhaps another, until there's a denouement at the end that nobody could possibly have predicted. Alfred Hitchcock's films are noted for their famous plots. If we look at something like Psycho, it was absolutely revolutionary at the time to kill off the heroine 30 minutes into a film. And yet that's exactly what he did. And also we look at something like North by...
Tony, challenge.
Repetition of look at.
Yes, and something as well. So, Tony.
Very good, though. Oh, he was on form. He was on fire, he was.
I know he was. You know, they're a very partisan audience. They go with the mood, and once they're with it, they don't want to lose the person. So, but Tony, you've got him with the correct challenge. Those are the rules of the game. 34 seconds available. A good plot starting now.
5 performers arrive in Newcastle for a long-running panel game. 1 is murdered after the show. The finger all points to the Admiral Collingwood, who had come back from the dead. But no, this would be a plot perhaps with some flaws, particularly since...
Charles, challenge.
Sorry, but he said perhaps twice.
You did indeed, yes.
You said perhaps Admiral Collingwood and perhaps a flaw.
I should... And by the way, I should explain to our listeners that Tony was actually referring back to a previous time when we were here in Newcastle, and Admiral Collingwood was one of the subjects, and that's why he's reintroduced it.
How did they know that, though?
Who's Admiral Collingwood? Is he the homosexual sailor?
They just... It was just sort of northeast Tyneside empathy. They got the message there. So a good plot is with you, Charles, and 15 seconds available starting now.
I have to say that having been in the Archers a very long time, the one thing I yearn for as an actor is a good plot. It's quite dreary if I'm finding myself...
So challenge.
How can you say that was the whole sausage factory? That went on for years.
How dare you call Siobhan a sausage factory?
So have you a challenge within the rules of just a minute?
No, just an unpleasant image in my head now. Thank you.
Yes, so have I indeed. But Charles, it wasn't a correct challenge, so you have a point for that, and you have a good plot still, and there's 7 seconds starting now.
It's certainly not a good plot if the writers have just got you walking across a field of oilseed rape, looking at this corn.
So Charles Collingwood is living up to the reputation of his ancestors who came from this part of the world. And he's now in the lead, quite a strong lead, actually, ahead of Sue and Tony and Paul in that order. And Tony, it's your turn to begin. A very topical subject for this part of the world. Shipbuilding. A sad subject, too. There are 60 seconds starting now.
I don't know a huge amount about shipbuilding. In fact, this will surprise you, but I've built hardly any ships. When I was 14, I had to go at a 45-foot cabin cruiser, but then I had a table tennis tournament and had to stop. My brother built a minesweeper later that week, and he moved up to Newcastle, where there's a bit of a reputation for shipbuilding. It's difficult to say whether this area, Tyne and Weir, is better at building these things than...
Sue, challenge.
A repetition of building.
That's
building
right.
Building twice.
You said building twice.
Yes, it's true. The subject is shipbuilding, but that's one word, unless I could try and pretend it was 2 words.
I know. No, shipbuilding is spelt as one word.
Yes.
Sue, you have a correct challenge. You have shipbuilding, and you have 33 seconds starting now.
I also know very little about shipbuilding, but imagine one of the founding principles is that it doesn't sink. Therefore, do not build any ships with holes in. Admiral Collingwood, obviously the famous admiral from these parts, knew all...
Paul, challenge.
Repetition of Admiral.
Yes, you had the admiral twice.
My God, you should walk the gangplank for that.
Well,
You don't know the half of it, Nicholas.
Well, having an admiral twice, I think, is quite an experience. Paul, the correct challenge. 22 seconds on shipbuilding, starting now.
Beginning of the Falklands War, Elvis Costello wrote a beautiful song called Shipbuilding, which was sung by Robert Wyatt and was one of the year's unusual hits. There is something rather romantic, isn't there, about the whole idea of building a ship. To be able to travel across the water at speed, to visit foreign countries, and to come back and say, do you know where I've been? I've been...
And Tony, you cleverly got in with 2 seconds to go. Shipbuilding's back with you, starting now.
Gloria Hunniford once said...
This deviation is completely off the subject of shipbuilding.
Well, he only said 2 words.
Yeah, and neither of them
and
got
it could
into
have well have been
shipbuilding.
that she wanted to be shipbuilding or
She's
she...
never built a ship, Gloria.
No.
Never.
But she comes from Belfast, another shipbuilding area, so there's a connection. That's probably what he was going to say.
I'm with my friend over here.
Are you his
Lorraine
agent?
Kelly.
Are you his agent?
No.
I am, and I'm all for it.
I'm always fair. He didn't have a chance to get a connection between Gloria Hunniford and shipbuilding, and I'm sure there was one coming up.
Oh, really?
Yes. And the
Should
benefit
we
of
all
the...
say names of personalities and then try and link them to the erstwhile shipbuilding industry?
Well, you've only got half a second to get a laugh on shipbuilding, starting now.
Petula Clark!
So Tony Hawkes will then speak as a whistle and gain that extra point, and he's equal with Paul in 3rd place, which is unusual for both of them. They're 1 behind Sue Perkins, and she's about 4 behind Charles Collingwood. So, Charles, you're doing well, and you take the next subject, which is being an only child. I don't know whether you are or not, but we'll talk on that subject. 60 seconds starting now.
It so happens that I am an only child. A child of the wartime. 1943 I was born, and my mother didn't have any more little babies after me. I don't care, because I was a spoilt brat, and I loved all the toys and trinkets that Mummy and Daddy gave me all those years through my childhood.
Sue, you challenged.
Repetition of all.
Oh, shut up!
He's so upset he was just about to get more sympathy for his... Well, not sympathy, actually. I just think aggravation of his child. Anyway, you had a correct challenge, Sue, and you had the subject of being an only child. 40 seconds available, starting now.
I was not an only child, but one of 3, and the eldest. Therefore, I had all the responsibility and had to share everything, particularly at mealtimes, where my brother would put a fork into my hand.
Tony, why have you challenged?
Because she's talking about being a child of one of 3, and I'm not interested. I only want to learn about being an only child in this round.
Now, that's a difficult decision, isn't it? Because she did start off by
You're the
saying...
eldest, you were an only child at one point.
Yeah, no, she was talking
3
about...
years.
Yes.
She was... I put it to you, Nico, she was about to tell us a story about what happened with
I
her
put it
brother.
to you.
Listen, stop arguing. You didn't give her a chance to go far enough.
fair.
She did establish that she was not an only child and was on that particular tack. And there is a case of benefit of the doubt, because I think you have some justification, Tony, but I give the benefit of the doubt to Sue. You keep the subject, Sue. 33 seconds. Being an only child, starting now.
The first 3 years of my life were a wasteland. I didn't know what was
Charles, it's
Repetition
done.
of 3.
One of 3.
One of
One of
three.
three.
One of 3. Oh, Charles, you're listening well. 30 seconds. Tell us more about being an only child, starting now.
I wonder if in the audience there are many only children. Are there, I ask myself, and I'm not getting any hands put up. So obviously I'm the only child here.
Full challenge. Yes. Oh.
Is it the word only that's on the card?
Only on the
Yeah, I'm
card.
trying to think of something else, but I can't. So, yes, I was going to challenge her only, but of course...
I know, and only, yes. It was quite a subtle one of his part. And you did get lots of hands from the audience. Well, one woman put up 2 hands. I don't understand.
Well, she was an only twin.
21 seconds, Charles. Still with you on being an only child, starting now.
It's beginning to be a bit lonely being an only child up here, because in the end I have to talk to myself and not to...
It's Paul
I had
Challenge.
myself before.
We
I
had
asked myself...
before.
Okay, yes, fair enough.
Yes, fair enough, yes. 14 seconds with you, Paul. Being an only child, starting now.
Up to the age of 7, I was an only child. My sister Angela was born at that time, but I do remember those halcyon days and years when my mother looked at me as an absolute miracle of birth and used to give me dresses to wear, and I'd wonder...
And Paul, it's your turn to begin, and the subject now is willpower. Can you tell us something about that in this game, starting now?
It's an essential ingredient if you want to succeed in show business, because when you start off early on, there's various setbacks, and it's not always easy to succeed in a particular branch of entertainment when other people are still trying to get to the same place as you. Willpower...
Tony Challenge.
I was deliberating for a long time there, but I think he said succeed twice.
You're right,
3
Tony.
people agree with you.
And so, Tony, you have a correct challenge. You have willpower and 47 seconds starting now.
If you are determined enough, you can talk for 47 seconds on any subject that is given to you.
Paul Challenge.
No,
Not if you're
can't.
interrupted.
Paul, you're quite right. But on
Deviation. You can't talk, you can't just do it. It's deviation, you see.
Yes, but on the other hand, the statement he's made is
Yeah.
also correct.
Is it?
Yes, so it was a correct statement, but yours was a very interesting challenge. So we give you a bonus point for an
Lovely.
interesting, clever interruption.
Very much. Excellent chairman, excellent chairman. Best chairman we've got. Best chairman we've got.
And so, Tony, you get a point for being interrupted, and you keep willpower, and you have 42 seconds starting now.
Not that long ago, I watched the final of the French Open at Roland Garros. I was most impressed by Rafael Nadal's willpower. How he saw off Federer was quite impressive in cheap.
A Sue challenge.
Slight hesitation.
There was a slight hesitation of the Federer. Yes, 31 seconds. Willpower's with you, Sue, starting now.
I used to smoke many cigarettes a day and couldn't possibly give up through willpower alone, so enabled the assistance of a hypnotherapist who looked me square in the eyes, which were googly and a little bit like Car the Snake from the Jungle Book.
Charles Challenge.
I think she was hesitating.
Yes,
then.
that
You went a bit
googly was, we interpret that.
Well,
as
I was in his spell.
Yeah. We live in the hypnosis.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you're going to be in mine now for a few seconds.
But you can't go into a hypnotic spell in order to carry on playing just a minute, Sue. So
Sometimes
you
it's
One
the
of
best
the,
way
it's
to
one of
do
the
it.
rules that doesn't actually get announced at the beginning, but no going into a hypnotic spell.
Well, I have to tell you, I have to be hypnotised before I can do this show.
Sue, we interpret that as hesitation. So willpower is with you, Charles, starting now.
I have enormous willpower. None of you in this room can understand the control I exert upon myself in having...
Sue, challenge.
There's a slight hesitation there. If I was still herself.
How could you?
I'm dying to know what he's stopping himself from doing.
Well, you may get a chance to find out.
In fact, you're going to find out, because I don't think he really hesitated enough to call it a penalty within the rules of just a minute. So, benefit of the doubt on this occasion to Charles. Keeps the subject, willpower, 11 seconds, starting now.
Willpower was a little spotty boy who lived in my street when I was a tiny child in Hampshire. And he got this tube of Valderma and squirted them all over his face. And do you know those little pumps all...
Paul, challenge.
A repetition of little.
There was too many littles.
All right,
little squirt.
sorry about that.
So, Paul, you got in with half a second to go. On willpower, starting now.
Swarfiga!
So, Charles, Paul Merton was speaking, then the whistle went. He's moved forward. He's now in second place. He's behind Charles Collingwood, who's in the lead. And we're moving into the final round, I'm sad to say. And in third place, equal are Sue and Tony Hawks. Sue and Tony Hawks. I'm sorry, Sue Perkins and Tony Hawks. They're not married yet. After playing this game for this length of time, you get hysterical sometimes, and I was absolutely out
I've
on
had
the...
a lot of weddings over the years, Nicholas, in the programme. With panellists.
It could be the first just-a-minute wedding.
This could be rather a moment tonight.
My name may be Parsons, but I don't marry people.
You have a lot of problems with the vows, though, with repetition. You know?
I only really came on this show to meet people.
But look at all these lovely Geordies you met tonight. Yes. Right. So that's the situation as we move into the final round. And Tony Hawks, it's your turn to begin. So will you take How to Survive a Stag Night? I think that's a very good subject, starting now.
I imagine it's a very difficult thing to survive in a real fit state, because they do insist on pouring alcohol down your neck. I once went to one, announced I was only going to have herbal tea. Didn't...
Paul, challenge.
I think you pour alcohol down your throat.
What he said?
Down your neck. That's the outside, isn't it?
Well, I think that's a very
So
good
then pour it
challenge.
down your neck.
That is how you survive a stag night, though.
Paul, you have the benefit of the doubt.
So
48
there.
seconds on How to Survive a Stag Night, starting now.
Get someone to pour drink down your neck. It's the only way, because then you don't get it in your throat.
Charles, challenge.
He can't get a point to get the subject from him saying, and then make a joke out of
Yes, he
down
can.
your neck. He can't do
He
that.
can.
It wouldn't be fair.
Yes,
It's
he can.
But he
this
didn't-
audience is so sweet, and they can't bear that.
But he was not saying you pour a drink down your neck there, conveying that he was imbibing it. He just said, pour a drink down your neck, which is quite a different image,
all
isn't
right,
it?
Nicholas, but I was revolted by the whole thing.
That's no reason to challenge. You can't challenge for revolting in this
Well, I've
game.
come a hell of a long way for this evening, you know, and
Hampshire, wasn't
if you're
it?
going to lose control at this hour, I don't know what the point is.
You're still in the lead, Charles. Don't worry.
I've never been in the lead.
I know you've never been in the lead.
Have you never won?
No!
Never won. He's never been in the lead.
hence that was-
Keep your cool and you'll probably be okay.
How many points is he ahead at the moment?
Shut up!
45 seconds with you, Paul, starting now.
Rutting on the moors late at night, you suddenly feel an antler poking behind your back, and you turn around and you wonder who is there, and you see the face of some old dear. And when I say that, I'm referring to a little old lady does the shopping on a Wednesday. No! What happened then? What happened?
Too old.
Too old.
Too old?
Yes.
Too old. She was too old.
Too old.
Shouldn't have been
Too
there.
old. The old lady and the old thing,
Yeah.
right? So, Sue, you got in on the subject with 29 seconds. How to survive a stag night, starting now.
Best thing to do is strip yourself naked and tie oneself to a tree.
Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
No.
Tie.
She goes at a hell of a lick, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes.
That's how I came to be Mrs. Tony Hawks.
Married by Nicholas Parsons, right. No, as her space she goes, you couldn't interpret that as hesitation. Okay. So, benefit of the doubt to Sue on this occasion. Keeps the subject, 26 seconds, how to survive a stag night, starting now.
As the antlers prod into your back, you turn round...
Charles challenged.
Well, repetition of antlers, because he said antlers.
I didn't.
No, she didn't.
No, but Paul did. It's a
No, she can't.
Can you say the same word in the whole thing?
No, you
darling. I want her to win so much.
I know, but you've played the game enough. It's only the person who's speaking can't repeat the word. You could take anybody else's material and repeat it ad lib if you wanted to.
Just overexcited, sorry.
I know you're overexcited. So, Sue... 24 seconds, Sue. You have another point. Sue will win at this rate. 24 seconds. How to survive a stag night, starting now.
Imagine an army of lads down the town. Of course you can. You're from Newcastle. Every Saturday, a huge phalanx of men with T-shirts bearing the legend Newcastle Brown Ale storm the streets with flags, banners waving.
Tony challenged.
I think she said Newcastle twice.
Yes.
She said, you're from Newcastle, and then she said, of course you can, you're from Newcastle.
And
Newcastle Brown.
So, we're going to hear from everybody on this subject.
Let's hear about yours.
Yeah.
11 seconds are still available for how to survive a stag night with you, Tony, starting now.
The old deer is behind you, and the stag ruts in front of wherever you are.
Sue challenged.
Was there slight hesitation?
No, Tony, another point.
I know we're worried about repeats in the BBC, but didn't I just say all that?
You may have said it, but he's allowed
He's nicking my material.
I know. You can do that in this game.
Can
no
you?
one's ever bothered challenge for it.
Really?
Yes.
Terrible chairman.
It's not as easy as that. Tony, another point and 5 seconds to go, starting now.
One terrific way to survive a stag night is to take oxygen. Strap it to your back, get it over your nose, and then if anybody tries...
Tony Hawks is then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so, with some slight interpretation of the rules on the last round from the chairman. I managed to engineer a situation at the end which is so eminently fair, because they're all so good at playing the game, that we have equal in second place, 3 people, Paul Merton, Tony Hawks and Sue Perkins, all equal. And only 1 point ahead, Charles Collingwood, so we take Charles. So what could be fairer? Because they all play the game so well and so keenly and with such vivacity and such erudition, but it only remains for me to say thank you on behalf of these 4 lovely people here, Paul Merton, Sue Perkins, Tony Hawks and Charles Collingwood. And I say thank you to our lovely whistleblower who's helped me with the score as well, that is Charlotte Davis. We thank our producer-director, who is Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this lovely game. And we're deeply indebted to this lovely audience here at the beautiful Theatre Royal in Newcastle, who've cheered us on our way with passion and Tyneside fervour. Thank you very much. Don't forget to tune in again the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country but throughout the world, but also to welcome to the show this week 4 exciting and diverse personalities who've come together to play Just a Minute. And they are seated on my right, that great exponent of this game, that wonderful popular comedian Paul Merton, and seated beside him, the veteran player of the game who brings his own individual attitude to the show, that is Clement Freud, and seated on my left, another fine comedian who's got his own individual style, that is Ross Noble, and seated beside him we have a lovely actress comedian Janey Godley, and would you please welcome all 4 of them. And as usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on a subject that I will give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And seated beside me is Charlotte Davis, who will help me with the score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from one of the venues at the Pleasance during the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. And we have an extravagant, excited Fringe audience in front of us who are dying time for us to get started. So, Janey Godley, welcome to the show. I think you'd like to start with you. So, would you like to take the subject of kangaroos? You have 60 seconds, and your time starts now.
I love kangaroos, especially the talking kind, and I like that pouch at the front because it's a bit like a shoplifting thing that they can use and maybe go through Boots the chemist and get stuff for me. Kangaroos are wonderful because they live in Australia, and I always wanted to go there and see Skippy, although he frightened me because he once drove a helicopter with his claws, and I'm not sure about a kangaroo that can do the helicopter flying thing. Getting to the good bit.
I know. But for the first time, 34 seconds. Not bad. Right. Clement, you were the first to challenge, yes?
Yes.
Yes, I know, but I have to... must know your challenge must to see whether I agree with it or not.
There were 2 helicopters.
There were 2 helicopters.
Oh,
well, yes, there were 2
always
helicopters.
happens to me.
No, it doesn't. Right. So, Clement, you have 34 seconds.
And no subtitles.
You'll need 2 helicopters to get out of here now.
As we enjoy that interjection of yours so much, Janey, I'm going to give you a bonus point.
Thank you.
Clement, your subject is kangaroos, and you have 34 seconds available, starting now.
D.H. Lawrence wrote a novel called Kangaroo about Australia. I'm not at all sure why, because Lady Chatterley's lover seemed to me to be absolutely adequate. Nevertheless, Kangaroo was set in Australia, which will surprise...
Well, Ross's challenge.
Repetition of Australia.
Yes, that's right, yes.
2 Australias.
So, yeah, 18 seconds, Ross. Tell us something about kangaroos, starting now.
Who could forget the D.H. Lawrence sequel, Lady Chatterley's Kangaroo? What a ridiculous thing it was. All kinds of saucy activities bouncing around through the trees. The gardener, there he is, storing things in the pouch that he possibly shouldn't have. Australia is one of...
So at the end of that round, Ross Noble, getting that extra point for speaking as a whistle went, has gone ahead. He's won ahead of Paul Merton, and then Clement, Freud and Janey Godley follow in that order. And Ross, we'd like you to take the next round. The subject is you and yours. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
You and Yours is a Scottish wrestler. He's very popular. I believe that his father originally came from Scandinavia, hence the yours. It's pronounced yoth if you are from that neck of the woods. He had many signature manoeuvres where he would get somebody in a headlock and then flip them over onto their back and then once again repeat the...
Clement challenged.
Hesitation.
I agree with the hesitation, yes, Clement. So you take over you and yours, and you have 34. It's interesting, it was exactly 34 seconds last time you spoke. Anyway, 34.
I think it's stuck on 34.
And I think those who are into mysticism and numbers will have some interpretation, but we haven't got time to ponder. You and yours, with you, Clement, starting now.
These are 2 very odd words to have in conjunction. Yew is a tree which has very lush, lavish leaves. And yours is the...
Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
Not quite, no. You have 25 seconds still available, Clement. You and yours are starting now.
Mary Ure was a great actress who was married at one time to John Osborne. And the Ures is quite simply her father and mother, her cousins, her nephews and nieces.
Paul challenge.
There was quite a lot of her.
Yeah.
Yes, there was, yes. So, Paul, you have the subject. You have you and yours. You have 14 seconds starting now.
The Chav version is Up You and Yours, and it's a very popular show. You can pick it up on local radio stations, rather aggressive consumer reports, buy this fridge or else you will know what's going to happen to you. That kind of thing goes on. Tracksuits are very popular at this time of year. I personally have bought...
So Paul Merton was speaking then as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's increased his lead just ahead of Ross Noble, a little way ahead of Clement Freud and Janey Godley. And Clement, your turn to begin. And the subject now is healthy scepticism. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
Healthy scepticism is the reaction to something which is apparently untrue, certainly unlikely. For instance, Paul talking about his days at Eton. I don't go with I admit he played the wall game with some skill, was a dry bob, and was expelled after a very short time. But I healthy scepticism...
Paul challenged.
It was a hesitation.
Yes, all that is a hesitation. Yes.
And actually, you'll find I was deputy headmaster for a number of years. Deputy, yeah.
All right. 38 seconds available. Healthy scepticism starting now.
If we look at the planet Pluto, we can see that the
Ross, you challenged.
The Google.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a planet.
Yeah.
And nearly didn't butt in because I thought I want to find out about Google.
No, we'll interpret that as hesitation. So you take over healthy scepticism, Ross, with 34 seconds starting now.
Healthy scepticism is the best way of burning calories. If you go for unhealthy scepticism, that is where you sit in a chair and look at things in a very sceptical manner. Whereas if you shoot past somebody very, very quickly in jogging pants...
Oh, yes.
Very quick.
Yes.
You know what? I'm not an educated man, and if that deputy headmaster had been better when I was at school...
It's the old trap it's so easy to walk into, but Clement, you were the first to challenge. Yes, very, very healthy scepticism is back with you, and 21 seconds starting now.
When Ross told me he had been a lifeguard at Weston-super-Mare and couldn't swim, I met that statement with healthy scepticism. It is total nonsense. He comes from Newcastle.
Ross, challenge.
Sorry, I thought that was a hesitation.
It was a hesitation.
Was it? Yes, it was. Yes.
Yes, and you've got in with 6 seconds to go on healthy scepticism, starting now.
I remember my days in Weston-super-Mare with great affection. The amount of times where I would pass... Oh, I was going to say run in slow motion, and then I went, I've already said run, and I'm a fool of myself. Can I have a point for challenging myself?
Yes. You didn't. Paul got in first. He challenged.
Okay.
So, Paul, yes. So, what was it?
Hesitation.
Paul? Hesitation, yes. And you've got in with half a second to go. Healthy scepticism, starting now.
Eton School!
Paul Merton was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's increased his lead, but Ross got points in the round, so there's still only 2 points between the two of them, and a few points between them and Clement and Janey. And Paul, your turn to begin. The subject, what cheers me up? That's the subject. Speak on it, 60 seconds if you can, starting now.
Walking around the Edinburgh Fringe during the festival is a wonderful thing. You see so many people having a good mood. I speak to taxi drivers. They say, "Aye, it's the best time of the year for us." And you can understand what they mean. If you can't understand the accent, I'll translate it for you earlier. Now, it seems to me that one of the happiest things you can do in life is to look at the planet Pluto and think to yourself, I would like to live there for a fortnight or 2 weeks, whichever is the longer. As a magnificent sphere that orbs our Earth...
Ross, yes?
Does it orb our Earth?
No. Absolutely meaningless.
So you've got deviation then?
Yes.
Yes, it doesn't orb the Earth, yes.
I'd like it if it
It's
did.
It's quite poetic.
It's in our planetary system, anyway.
Yes.
But it doesn't orb the world, the Earth. It doesn't. I don't know what I'm talking about either. But it's all good.
Again?
What's
Roy
that?
Orbison. Well, it's orb, isn't it?
What's it?
What's the subject? I've lost it.
Roy Orbison. Is that what you said?
I was making a word out of orb in my head.
I thought he just walked in.
He did.
No, Janey, that's not the subject orb. It's what cheers me up.
All right.
And Ross has
Orbs.
got the subject. You've got 33 seconds, starting now.
Roy Orbison cheers me up. Every time I go to one of his gigs, I can't help myself. I was once strolling down the road and saw 2 old men coming towards me. A gust of wind caught the hat of one of them. It flipped in the air and landed on the crown of the said other fellow. I laughed heartily as this occurrence happened before my very eyes. It was as if they were trained circus professionals who for many years had stood there waiting for this particular not geological
Yeah, you're waiting for that orb
that's
experience.
not weather, is it? Geological?
No.
Geological.
Genealogical. So you've challenged Janey. You've got 2 seconds to tell us something about what cheers me up, starting now.
Donny Osmond.
Clement challenged.
Hesitation, I thought.
No.
Oh, come on! I was taking a you could understand me perfectly.
I think he was being generous, so you get another point.
I love him.
So you got another point there, Janey.
Thanks.
What cheers me up? 1 second left, starting now.
Oh, come on!
That really was hesitation.
Yeah!
It really was hesitation.
I know, because it was a bad word in my head.
Listen, Janey, but as you've never played the game before, I'm going to be generous to you.
Thank you.
Because I didn't give it to you again with Clement round. I'm not going to give it to you now he's challenged you. You get another point for that. And you've got half a second to go, but please start when I say now.
Okay.
You've got half a second on what cheers me up, starting now.
Chocolate.
Right now. So, Janey, Godley was speaking as the whistle went then, again that extra point, and she's now leapt forward. My goodness me, she's still in third place, but she's leapt. She's ahead of Clement Freud, she's just behind Ross Noble, and 1 or 2 behind Paul Merton. And Janey, it's again your turn to begin. Oh, this is a good Glasgow subject, it's a good Scottish subject. Right, this brings out all my Scottish blood anyway. William McGonagall. Do you know much about William McGonagall?
No, in that accent. Aye, a wee bit.
Give us a wee bit of William McGonagall. It's got 60 seconds, starting now.
William McGonagall was known as the world's worst poet in the English language. His famous ditty was the whole one about the Tay Bridge disaster. This man hung about railway stations waiting for bad things to happen so that he could write poems about them. Some of his other poems...
It's a difficult... Clement, you've challenged.
Repetition.
Yes, poems, right. So, you tell us something about William McGonagall with 45 seconds available, Clement, starting now.
I've always found the William McGonagall myth very strange, because normally if you have a bad poet, no one reads him. Yet, in William McGonagall's case, he seems to have become increasingly famous as his verse deteriorates in every...
Ross.
There was a hesitation.
Yes, he's thought about deteriorating and he's running out of steam, really. Like a McGonagall poem. Right, so, Ross, you've got William McGonagall and you have 28 seconds starting now.
The difference between William McGonagall and Kate Adie is that he could rhyme. She would always turn up to places where there were disasters and things happening, but she didn't even bother herself to write a limerick, and that's why...
Clement challenged.
Repetition.
Of what?
Rhyme, right.
That's right, yes. I'd have to ask you, Clement.
Sorry?
You might have said something else I disagreed with. So you have the subject back. You have 16 seconds. William McGonagall starting now.
I didn't know about the Tay Bridge disaster until I read William McGonagall, and I'm now probably more knowledgeable on that subject than any other awful thing that happened anywhere during the last 49 years.
And Paul's challenge.
There was a bit of a gap.
There was a hesitation. Yeah, Paul?
You could have made a ham sandwich, couldn't you, Nick?
That's, well, not quite a ham sandwich, but anyway, it's a correct challenge, Paul. So it's justification. They've all got points, and you've got a quarter of a second on William McGonagall starting now.
William McGonagall!
So Paul is speaking against the whistle when gained that extra point. He's increasingly just a little over... No, he's just in the same position. 2 points ahead of Ross Noble, 3 points ahead of Clement Freud, and 4 points ahead of Janey Godley. That's the situation as we move on to Ross Noble to start again. Ross, the art of mime, which is wonderful, of course, on radio. What an amazing subject for a radio show. You can't illustrate it, but talk about it 60 seconds starting now. Well, it was one of the biggest laughs we've ever had in just a minute. I should explain to our listeners what happened. Ross took the subject, I have to explain, and he went into a mime. And the audience loved it. And this is the first time we've had mime on radio, and it's worked. And he got so carried away with the reaction he got, the only way we could stop him was for me to leave my chair and go over there and physically restrain him.
I tried.
I do have to say there was a repetition of... But I think so. There was a repetition of walking against the wind.
I know.
Which, you know, it's an easy mistake
Well, I tell
to
you
make.
what we do. Paul was the first to challenge, so he gets the subject. We're going to get back into the realms of sound radio, and we're going to give you 2 bonus points.
Right.
One because the audience enjoyed it so much, and also because it was so inventive. And Paul, you challenged, and when you pressed your buzzer, there were 55 seconds to go, so please tell us...
There was about 30 seconds in. There's 55 seconds to go.
55?
Yeah.
Because you pressed your buzzer almost immediately. Because he was miming, and we had 5 seconds of silence. And you pressed your buzzer, and that's when it
really?
went. Yes.
Okay, all right.
So that's all right. Please don't mime. I don't think I'll cope with another one. Talk on the subject of the subject. Talk on the art of mime. 55 seconds starting now.
If we look at the silent comedians of the 1920s, we can see very skilled mime artists. Charlie Chaplin, Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton, Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy all reached great heights in this rather unusual medium. If you see a mime in the street these days, as Ross indicated just now, you might see a number of various actions which you've seen before, the walking against the wind or the trapped inside the glass box. The great thing about the comedians in that era that I mentioned...
Ross, challenge.
I'm just going to interrupt. Like, he's a genius on this subject. This is like... well, there's not an official thing, but he knows everything there is to know, and therefore, I just thought I'd just interrupt.
Ross, I've got to say, you played the game often enough. You know, even if you know all about the subject, you still hesitate, you still repeat yourself. It's very difficult to keep going, keep that discipline of thought going.
I thought I'd beat him to it.
No. You interrupted him, actually. He was going in fine style.
Sorry.
And even...
And let me go, I've got 55 seconds left.
You've still got 29 seconds. You've got another point. Well, you caught your breath, Ross. This helps you. You caught your breath again. 29 seconds, because you get another point for being interrupted. And you start now.
Charles was perhaps the finest of all those particular comics I mentioned earlier. I can't mention... Oh, no.
That's what often happens. You get interrupted and the flow goes right. So Clement was the first to come in, and you know what it was. We all know. The Art of Mime, and you have 24 seconds starting now.
In 1215, the Magna Carta was signed at Runnymede against the will of King John.
Was it signed against a tree? Signed against a tree? It wasn't signed against the will of something. That seems very awkward.
Yes.
Was it signed against a tree?
It wasn't a tree. It was against his will. He didn't want to sign it.
Doesn't that make the handwriting shaky?
So we'll let him keep the subject. 16 seconds, Clement. The Art of Mime starting now.
I have several gramophone records, both 78 and 33s, of mime artists. They bore people to distraction. After dinner, I say, let us sit down, and we will get the gramophone, and I will wind it up and sharpen the needle.
So Clement Freud was then speaking as the whistle waned again, that extra point for doing so. He's now 1 point behind our leader, Paul Merton, 1 point ahead of Ross Noble, and 3 points ahead of Janey Godley. And Clement, it's also your turn to begin, so we're going to hear from you again. Oh, this is a good subject for you. How to snub somebody. No, the wording on the card, actually, I must get it right, because you mustn't be. How to snub someone. 60 seconds starting now.
You put your arms round them and your tongue into their mouth.
Janey, you've challenged.
He stopped for a long time.
No, he paused. That's
all right, okay.
Hesitation, yes.
Yeah.
Well, he'll get his tongue in your mouth, of course. I mean...
I get frightened.
Right, yes.
I thought that is how you snog someone.
Snub.
Snub.
He sounds like a good snogger.
Shall we get the sound engineer to come back?
Is it snog or snub?
No, it is snub.
It is snub, yeah.
It's a snub, yes.
Oh,
right.
cool.
So...
I've never had lessons how to snog before. That was wonderful.
Well, we'll talk to Clement. He obviously knows all about it. But, Janey, you did have a correct challenge, so you take over the subject, and there are 52 seconds on how to snub someone starting now.
The best way to snub someone is stand in front of them, make funny eyes and wave at people behind them. And every time they speak, just stick your 2 fingers up into their eyes. Laugh, laugh.
Oh, it's a difficult game, isn't it? Right, Ross, you challenge first.
Repetition of laugh.
Yes.
No, surely not.
Yes. 42 seconds available, Ross. How to snub someone, starting now.
I always feel sorry for snub-nosed dolphins because it's physically impossible for them to be friendly to anyone. They simply approach them and instantly snub. At any party, should you invite that particular creature along, you will find one, they'll be flapping around on the floor because they need to be underwater, and they'll be knocking your vol-au-vents all over the place, and let alone meeting somebody, and the next thing you know, they're rolling around on the floor with Clement Freud while he snubs them.
Clement Freud challenge.
We've had floor before.
Yes, you had 2 floors.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Yeah, that's right, yes. So, Clement, it's you have the subject back. It is snub, by the way, and 17 seconds on how to snub someone starting now.
If someone comes up to you, for instance, and says you're very fat, a very good reply is, it's because every time I go to bed with your wife, she gives me a biscuit.
Paul, you challenged first. Nobody challenged for quite a long time, actually. It was very interesting. They were absorbing what went on, but you eventually challenged.
Yes,
Paul.
well, it was sort of hesitation.
Hesitation. It was a complete full stop. But I think he actually retired on his laurels of the volume of laughter he got. So we give him a bonus point because they obviously enjoyed the joke. And Paul, you've gone in with 3 seconds to go. And a point, of course. How to snub someone starting now.
Custard creams are my favourite, but indeed, if you really want to snub somebody.
Right, so Paul Merton was speaking then when the whistle went, gained that extra point, and he's now taken the lead ahead, just ahead of Clement Freud and just ahead of Ross Noble. And Janey Godley's got a number of points, but she's still in 4th place, but does it matter? She's going to take the last round. Janey, it's my favourite nursery rhyme, and you have 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
An old lady who lived in a shoe is my favourite nursery rhyme. I don't know why this woman had so many children and then beat them with a stick and made them live inside leather. Possibly she is from the East End of Glasgow, which makes her part of my family. It was my mother, in fact, who lived there. And we...
Clement, you challenged.
Mother, repeat.
Your mother, yes, there was...
I don't think so. I only had one mother.
I think there were 2 mothers.
Lived. There was 2 lived. You missed the 2 lived, but there was one mother.
Well, I'm going to overlook it, Janey, as you haven't played the game before.
Thanks.
And give...
Clement's looking at me like he's going to snog me. And that's frightening.
I'll get the equipment.
So, Janey, carry on with my favourite nursery rhyme. 43 seconds, starting now.
She was a scary woman in the shoe, but her...
Right, yes.
What's the repetition of shoe?
Shoe, you had the shoe before.
Oh, right, well, I thought it was only in segments. Sorry, you're right.
No, if you've used it before, even in this round, you can't use it again.
Okay.
Right. So, Paul, it's back with you. My favourite nursery rhyme, 40 seconds, starting now.
Just thinking about now my favourite nursery rhyme, I'm going to pluck one from thin air and hopefully it doesn't have too much repetition. Little Jack Horner sat in the corner, eating his curds and whey. Up came a spider and sat down beside her, and the number 7 bus goes this way. What a fantastic poem. London Transport in the 1930s produced children's book of poetry. You could read all kinds of things. The terminus that stopped at Acton, or the bus that never went home. They were very sad stories that helped us beat Hitler in the Second World War. How many here can remember Goebbels' Happy Hour? What a puppet show that was. I still remember. What the hell am I talking about?
It doesn't matter, Paul, they loved it, but Ross, you challenged. What was it for?
Deviation.
Yes, it was from my favourite nursery rhyme. Well, I don't know. Could it be Goebbels' nursery rhyme?
What the hell am I talking about?
That's one of my favourite nursery rhymes. It questions our innermost beliefs. No, No, don't worry.
No,
I'll give up on that one.
I give up. We're not going to justify it. Benefit of the doubt to Ross, and you have 6 seconds, Ross. My favourite nursery rhyme starting now.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, and then he came off and hurt himself quite badly. His shell was damaged, and he was...
So it remains for me to give you the final situation. Well, Janey Godley, who's not played the game before, did very well. She got quite a few points, but she did unfortunately finish in 4th place. But well done, Janey. Come back again. And then ahead of her, with only 1 point separating them all, but in ascending order, it was Ross Noble, 1 point ahead Clement Freud, and 1 point ahead Paul Merton. So, Paul, we say you're the winner, but it was even Stevens, wasn't it? Congratulations to them all. Okay. Thank you to these 4 delightful players of the game: Paul Merton, Ross Noble, Janey Godley, and Clement Freud. I thank Charlotte Davis, who's helped me with the score and blown her whistle so delicately. We thank our producer, who is Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this game, and we're very indebted to this lovely audience here at the Fringe, at the Pleasance in Edinburgh, who've cheered us on our way. You've had a great time. We've had a lovely time. Thank you very much. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only those who tune into Radio 4, but BBC 7, the internet, and of course round the world. But more importantly, to welcome to the show 4 exciting, talented people who are going to play this game. And seated on my right, we welcome back that wonderful evergreen comedian who's contributed so much over the years to Just a Minute. That is Paul Merton. And seated beside him, we have that veteran player of the game who gives such great value every time he appears on the show. That is Clement Freud. And seated on my left, we have that delightful actor and writer who does so well every time he brings his show up here to the Fringe. That's Owen O'Neill. And seated beside him, another lovely person from the Emerald Isle, a brilliant actress, a writer, and a great stalwart of this show. It is Pauline McLynn. Please welcome all 4 of them. Thank you. And seated beside me is Charlotte Davis, who's going to blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up and help me keep the score with a stopwatch. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from a venue at the Pleasance during the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. And we have a rather hyped-up, excited Fringe audience dying for us to get started. So we begin the show with Clement Freud. And Clement, what a good topical subject. The best time to be in Edinburgh. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
There is no such thing as the best time to be in Edinburgh, because Edinburgh is permanently wonderful, whether morning, lunchtime, afternoon, evening or night. Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, from January to December, although possibly New Year's Eve is the absolutely most brilliant time because people buy you a drink. Now, it's very rare for people in Edinburgh. You stand at a bar...
Owen, you've challenged.
Slight hesitation?
No, I think he does go a bit more slowly than some, but he was going at a measured pace.
Okay.
So, well, nice to hear from you.
Yes.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
And so we give the benefit of the doubt to Clement. You say you still keep the subject. You get a point for being interrupted, Clement. You keep the subject. There are 25 seconds available. The best time to be in Edinburgh starting now.
Bars serve whiskey, gin, brandy, rum, with all sorts of condiments and accompaniments, small bottles of...
Paul challenged.
That was a hesitation.
That was a hesitation, Paul. I agree with that. So you have a point for a correct challenge. You take over the subject. There are 15 seconds still available, and the subject is the best time to be in Edinburgh, starting now.
Well, for me, clearly the best time to be in Edinburgh is here during the festival. What fun, you walk up and...
Pauline challenged.
Was festival mentioned before? Is that repetition?
No, yeah, but he didn't mention it before.
Oh, no! Are you serious?
We made the game impossible,
You see it written
Pauline.
down a lot as you go round town. It might...
It's very repetitive,
Yes,
this
you've heard it
festival
somewhere.
thing, yes. All right, do you know, Nicholas, I'm going to let that go. I take your point. I feel that the rules of Just a Minute aren't rigorous enough.
That was an incorrect challenge.
Oh,
So,
damn
Paul,
it.
you have another point, and you have the subject still, and 11 seconds available, the best time to be in Edinburgh, starting now.
I've been coming to Edinburgh to record Just a Minute for about 12 years now, and it's always, for me, the highlight of the whole event. When I sit here and look at this magnificent audience in front of me...
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point, and on this occasion it was, of course, Paul Merton, so he's naturally in the lead at the end of the round. Pauline, McLynn, we'd like you to take the next round, and the subject is A Dream Come True. You have 60 seconds to tell us about it, starting now.
For me, a dream come true would be the face and body of Keira Knightley and the brain of Paul Merton. Or should that be the other way around? I was asked at Christmas one year by a paper what would be my dream come true, and I answered marriage. Listeners, I got it. So the flip side of a dream come true is be careful what you wish for. I have to say that after 10 years of said arrangement with my husband, I now find him watching the video of our wedding backwards so that he can watch himself go back out the church door a single man.
In order to get that joke over, you had to repeat something. Yes,
I went for
Paul,
it.
you buzz first.
A repetition of what?
Watch, yes, right. So, Paul, you have the subject. You have 24 seconds. A dream come true, starting now.
Sorry, I was just dreaming. I was dreaming I was doing Just a Minute. And it came true.
So we give Paul a bonus point for his amusing remark. But Owen, you challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I agree with that, of course. Owen, you have 3 seconds, and tell us something about a dream come true, starting now.
A dream come true for me is to buzz Paul Merton on Just a Minute, because he is so very good at it that it takes anybody a long time to buzz him whenever they're...
Paul, what was your challenge?
Repetition of buzz.
Yeah, a repetition of buzz, I'm sorry, Owen. So he's got a correct challenge. He has 13 seconds to tell us something about a dream come true, starting now.
My dream come true is for Owen O'Neill to buzz me on Just a Minute when I...
Owen, you challenge.
I'm just here to make your dreams come true.
A generous thought from Paul gave you the chance to buzz in, gain a point and the subject, and 10 seconds. A dream comes true, Owen, starting now.
A dream come true once was meeting Mick Jagger. He came to see my show, and then I got him to do a little bit of filming, and he said that he would do it for a film that I was going to
Pauline challenge.
I think several hesitations, because he was very excited about Mick Jagger, and I understand that. I feel quite the same way. But there was a lot of
I think
doing
Mick Jagger
it,
might excite you a bit more than Owen, though.
Now, Nicholas, I have to stop you right there and say, don't assume too much.
No, I'm not going to go...
Owen's younger than Mick.
Right.
I say no
anyway,
more than
Pauline,
that.
I agree with the challenge. You've got in with 1 second to go on a dream come true, starting now.
A dream come true would be Owen O'Neill.
So Pauline McLynn was speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point. She's moved forward. She's in second place behind Paul Merton, and they're followed by Owen O'Neill and Clement Freud in that order. Owen, will you take the next round? The subject, nice Scots subject here, Hootsmon. Tell us something about Hootsmon in this game, starting now.
Hootsman is one of those incredibly stupid expressions that, in my experience, Scottish people never actually say. The Irish equivalent is, of course, the top of the morning to you. And if you ever are in Scotland or Ireland and utter any of these vacuous phrases, which incidentally were invented by the English to insidiously decimate the Celtic cultures, then you deserve to have a loud punch in the gob. Hootsman...
Paul challenge.
A bit of a long hesitation.
No, there wasn't. He was going...
Thank you.
Oh, no.
It was a measured...
Yes, he drew...
Some people call it breathing. I don't know.
Oh,
I think we call it hesitating in this game.
I'm afraid you've got the Irish Mafia on this side.
Yeah.
The Irish...
Murphy.
Yeah, they've got the hands across the border anyway. So, no, I disagree. So you've still got the subject, Owen, and you've got 32 seconds on Hootsman, starting now.
Hootsman, when translated into the modern-day Anglo-Saxon, means...
Paul
Well, the subject is Hootsmon, isn't it? And Hootsman, I said man twice.
It's just my accent.
No, you did say man instead of mon.
Did I say man?
It should be Hootsman.
Hootsman?
Yeah.
It just suddenly got so ugly here, didn't it? I'm frightened, Nicholas.
So I did give you the benefit of the doubt last time, Owen, so I give it to Paul on this occasion. Right, Paul, 29 seconds. Hootsmon, starting now.
I arrived in Edinburgh on a man day, I think you'll find it was, and Hootsmon is something you hear when you walk down the street from American tourists who expect to see the local Scots, indicating the kind of thing that you haven't really know what you're saying, but somebody may not notice because you get to the end of the sentence and nobody's looking at you. And you might get away with it if you bluff it.
Pauline, challenge.
I would have to say that was deviation of the highest regard.
Why?
Because he just went into one of his fabulous, jazzy, nonsensical sentences.
Yeah, but he was still going on about Hootsman and the language and so forth, wasn't he?
Well, language taken to an extreme, though, I feel.
I think I give benefits of the doubt. Pauline, as you haven't played it so often, I will give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm sorry, audience, it's got nothing to do with you. So, the decision, and I will try and redress the balance later on if I can. So, Pauline, the benefit of the doubt, 13 seconds, Hootsmon, starting now.
I would love to meet a Scot that would say Hootsmon to me so that I could give them a little slap around the face and say, don't bend to the stereotypes that all of the world expect from you. Respect your race. Be bigger than that. Build a bridge.
So Pauline McLynn was then speaking as the whistle went and gained that extra point, and with others in the round, she's moved forward. She's only 2 behind Paul Merton, our leader, just ahead of Owen O'Neill and Clement Freud in that order. And Paul, we'd like you to take the next round. The subject is grasping at straws. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
It's a phrase that means when you look like all your luck's about to run out, you grab something hoping that you'll be saved. You can imagine perhaps somebody in a swamp trying to reach for the bank, grasping literally at straws so they can be dragged back onto dry land. When we look around each other...
Clement, challenge.
They're not straws. They tend to be reeds.
But they're like straw reeds, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, you clutch at them. When they're dead and they've died, those reeds go into straws.
Yeah.
If you know anything about gardening, you know that they're all straw-like entirely. And I think Paul was justified in using that.
Best chairman we've got. It's
the only one you've got, unfortunately.
Yes.
No, again, I will say about benefit of the doubt. Paul, I give you the benefit of the doubt, and you keep the subject, and there are 44 seconds on grasping at straws starting now.
When I worked at McDonald's, part of my job was to feed up the Pepsi-Cola cartons, and they said, well, the straws are over there, and I tried to reach them. I was grasping them all over the floor. They said, you're no good. Those might as well be reeds the way you've grabbed those. Do you not know the difference between a riverbank and where we're working now in this burger shop? I said, yes, I do know the difference. And it was then I realised that my dream...
Clement, challenge.
Repetition of difference.
Yes, they were different.
Was there?
Yes. So, Clement, you've got in with 27 seconds to go, grasping at straws, starting now.
If you want to make a milkshake for your children, which is an excellent thing to do, try getting a banana, some grapes.
Owen, challenge.
There's a bit of a hesitation?
There was a bit of a hesitation, yes, trying a banana. So...
It's harsh.
What?
All right, I give benefits of the doubt. Do you want Clement to have the benefit of the doubt?
I don't want the benefits.
Right, all right.
Oh, do you hear him now? I don't want the benefits.
So, all right, now everybody's had a benefit of the doubt except Pauline. There's one owing to you, Pauline, darling. Right, there we are. So, 20 seconds, carry on, Clement, grasping at straws, starting now.
A sufficiency of milk, a few lumps of ice, and then you...
Paul, challenge.
We had milk in milkshake before.
Had a milkshake.
Yeah.
Milkshake.
You can't really make a milkshake without, though. It's like...
But in just a minute, you can't repeat it.
Oh, it's so... and that's one of the examples of too harsh a rule. Oh, I say no
Pauline,
more.
we're quite happy to change the whole nature of this show that's been running successfully for 40 years, if it makes you any happier.
Just bringing a fresh approach,
I know.
that's all.
But after 39 years, it has worked quite well, Pauline.
Oh, all right, you've beaten me down. It might as well be 800 years the way you're carrying on, no?
Paul, 16 seconds, grasping at straws, starting now.
I believe you've just given it to me, and if you haven't, I'd be grasping at straws, and that's what the thing means. When you see a situation open up in front of you, and you think to yourself...
Clement challenge.
It says think before.
He did say think before.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes.
6 seconds, Clement, grasping at straws, starting now.
A Pimm's #1 served with apricot brandy is something which will get people clutching at straws.
So Clement Freud was then speaking as the whistle went, gained other points in the round. He's leapt forward. He's equal with Pauline McLynn in second place behind Paul Merton. Owen is just behind them. And Clement, it's your turn to begin. And the subject now is immortality. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game starting now?
When you're my sort of age, you think less about immortality than mortality. And I have spent many hours of my time trying to find a legend to put on my tombstone, which originally was going to be, he never insulted anyone unintentionally. And then, after careful rethought, was best before and the date on which... But I have now decided that the ideal message to put upon this stone over my grave is, he was not speaking.
Owen.
It's hesitation.
That was definitely hesitation, yes.
Oh, come on!
And there was stone twice, actually, as well.
I know. Why'd you let him go? But
well, I wanted to hear what he was going to do. You know what the third thing was going to be?
Oh, okay, then I'll take it back.
No, you're not. These are the rules of the game. You've got it's a very long pause. So, Owen,
it's
you
a
have
jungle out here.
And we want to hear from you on immortality too. 18 seconds, starting now.
Immortality, of course, does not exist. We would all like this particular thing to be real, but it's not. I would like to have it on...
Yes,
too much liking. Too much liking.
It's all right, don't rub it in, darling.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I repeated myself there, didn't I?
You've got the subject and a point and 10 seconds. Immortality, Pauline, starting now.
The trouble with immortality is that it seems to stretch forever, as far as I'm concerned. I really don't have the time for that. I need to do new things. I can't be facing into immortality.
Pauline McGonagall was then speaking as the whistle went. Gain the extra point. She's moved forward. She's ahead of Clement Freud. She's 2 points behind Paul Merton, our leader, and just ahead of Owen O'Neill. And Pauline, it's also your turn to begin. And the subject's a nice one, I hope for you. It's my midlife crisis.
Lovely.
Can you tell us something about that subject in this game starting now?
Well, I'm 44 years old, and to me, this is exactly the right time for me to have a midlife crisis.
Owen, challenge.
Repetition of me.
But it's all about me.
It's a tough challenge, but it's correct.
Yeah.
I'm afraid. Owen, you have the point, you have the subject. 55 seconds, my midlife crisis, starting now.
My midlife crisis happened quite a while ago. Men who have midlife crises, they get to drive sports cars and drink a lot and run after young girls, whereas women who have a midlife crisis get to have hot flushes and become insane.
Paul, challenge.
Repetition of get to have.
Get to have, I'm afraid, yes. 2 gets to have.
That's right.
So, Paul, a correct challenge. 39 seconds, starting now.
You don't know when your midlife is, so how are you going to have a crisis about it? You might be dead by the time you're 50, so you can't really tell. To me, a midlife crisis is one of these journalistic inventions. I have never suffered a midlife crisis. When I look over at Nicholas Parsons, I think to myself, if I'm like that when I'm 90, then I'll be very, very happy indeed. What a tremendous example he is to immortality. Nicholas, the first man ever to appear on the BBC back in 1922.
Challenge.
Repetition of Nicholas.
I know, what a pity.
Give me the benefit of the doubt.
But it was a correct challenge, Clement. So my midlife crisis is with you. That's the subject. 17 seconds, starting now.
In my midlife crisis, I tried to think of something to put on my tombstone. And determined now to write on it, he was not speaking when the whistle went. That's all.
Poor challenge. Poor
That's
challenge.
it.
Hesitation.
Yes. But I'll tell you what, show you how fair and generous I am.
Give me the benefit of the doubt.
No benefit of the doubt. I'll be even more generous. I say, because the audience enjoyed what you said, Clement, and got such a big laugh and you paused, you will get a bonus point for that. But Clement, Paul gets the subject and a point, of course, and there are 4 seconds available. My midlife crisis starting now.
On my tombstone I want, beneath this sod lies another one. You can't do that.
So Paul Merton was again speaking as the whistle when gained the extra point. He's increased his lead ahead of Pauline, McLynn and Clement Freud, who are equal in second place. Owen brings up the rear, and Owen, it's your turn to begin. The subject now, recycling. Can you tell us something about that subject with 60 seconds to go, starting now?
Recycling in my household is a logistic nightmare. In the old days, you only had to recycle bottles, green, brown and clear. Now you have to recycle everything. Paper, cardboard, shoes, batteries, mobile phones, duvet covers, human hair, and my jokes, which I have to recycle at the Edinburgh Festival because I've been doing it for 25 years and I've run out of subjects to talk about. Recycling, of course, is very helpful to the environment, so they tell us, but I don't...
Clement challenge.
That was his second, of course.
Yes,
He's quite keen on of courses.
I know.
Of course I am.
It's a term of language which helps you through, but unfortunately you can't repeat it. So Clement, correct challenge, 30 seconds, recycling, starting now.
It is said that once you can ride a bicycle, you can continue to do so for the rest of your life. Well, I tried and couldn't. I recycled all I could, up a hill, down a valley, and nothing. The pedals went round and I fell off. So that goes for recycling.
Paul, you challenged.
It was hesitation.
There was hesitation, yes. You have the subject of recycling, 10 seconds to go, starting now.
It was I who translated Nicholas's routine from the original Greek. And there he was recycling these jokes in front of the audience, and they roared with laughter when he walked onto that stage.
Paul Merton was again speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's increased his lead ahead of Clement Freud, Pauline McLynn and Owen O'Neill. And Paul, it's also your turn to begin. And the subject now is flower power. Tell us something about flower power in just a minute, starting now.
In the 1967 film The Producers, made by Mel Brooks, there's a character called LSD, played by Dick Shawn, and this... couldn't think of another word for character.
Pauline, you challenge.
It was a hesitation.
It was
wasn't
hesitation.
it?
So, Pauline, you have 52 seconds. Flower power is the subject, and you start now.
Flower power is all very well, but I believe in drugs, really, for curing anything like a hangover or a disease of any sort. I think that flowers are beautiful to look at, and that is their power, certainly, but they're a hell of a lot less use than they're made out to be when it comes to curing pain, or perhaps even just a bad hair day.
Paul challenge.
Was that a hesitation?
Yes, it was a hesitation. I'm sorry, Pauline.
Damn it, he's right.
30 seconds, Paul. Flower power, starting now.
It was a wonderful time in San Francisco, 1966. The Clement Freud Magnificent Explosives Band were there with their hip-hop ribbons and their Grateful Dead... Oh, what am I talking about? I've got all the albums.
Yes, this was a sort of real channel that came to a dead end. Right. And Owen, you challenge first. So you have flower power, and you have 21 seconds starting now.
Flower power actually started in Ireland in the late 16th century. When we ran out of potatoes, flour became really popular for baking bread. We ate flour all the time, and the power that it gave us was tremendous. When we were out in the fields, ploughing away there on our... on our iron implements, I was going to say, but...
Tragically hesitation.
Tragically hesitation, and you've got him with 2 seconds to go.
Oh, no! The poacher strikes again!
You haven't gained any friends, but you've got the subject. And 2 seconds, flower power, starting now.
Sergeant Pep...
Oh, Owen, challenge.
Pep, hesitation.
We're in between pep and purr. Right?
Yeah.
and I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll give you a bonus point for inventiveness. Paul was interrupted, so correct when the rules of just a minute. He still has the subject, flower power, 2 seconds to go, starting now.
Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band.
So apparently we're moving into the final round. And in that situation, Owen O'Neill and Pauline, McLynn and Clement Freud are almost equal. Not quite, but almost. Only 1 point separates them in second place. They're training Paul Merton, who has, for once, got a very strong lead. Pauline McLynn, will you take that final round?
I would be delighted to, Nicholas
Isn't
Parsons.
that good? Do you know anything about hopscotch? Doesn't really matter whether you do or not, because that's the subject. 60 seconds starting now.
Is it just me, or does hopscotch mean something entirely different when you're here in Edinburgh? I don't know. I could be wrong about that. For me...
Owen challenge.
I think there was a slight hesitation. I said slight.
I know slight.
hesitation.
Not enough to get the point. I'm
Okay.
sorry. So, Pauline, you keep the subject. I haven't got another point, of course. Hopscotch, 52 seconds, starting now.
For an Irish girl, hopscotch meant a game that I played with others who lived on my street. We were normally very beautifully dressed with pigtails. We would chalk out the hopscotch and then play to the death. The important thing...
Clement challenge.
Repetition of play.
Yes, there were too many plays, I'm afraid. So, Clement, the correct challenge, and the 39 seconds still available. Tell us something about hopscotch, starting now.
Hoots mon is something...
Owen challenge.
Deviation.
Yes, but we didn't get enough time to stem. He might be...
Well, how about repetition of a previous round?
I thought Hoots...
No, I've got to be fair.
We can't have repetition from previous rounds as we've been playing this game for 39 years. It makes it incredibly difficult.
No doubt he was going to make a connection between Hootsmon and hopscotch.
Okay,
You'll have to wait and see.
enough.
Because on 2 words, you can't really. So,
Right.
Clement, you have the subject and you have 31 seconds, hopscotch, starting now.
The new is a very good time to play hopscotch. That was really my...
He set it up for you.
What?
You need to buzz in and get the subject. He looked over to you.
Did he?
Yes.
I didn't realise you were looking at me. I thought he was just staring at me.
But anyway,
It sort of
Paul's
frightened me. I
buzzer...
didn't want to say anything.
Paul's buzzer went first, so Paul, yes, hesitation. You have 32 seconds, hopscotch, starting now.
Hopscotch is a game that you played on the pavement. You get a bit of a chalk and you do squares and you put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as many as you like, and then you jump up and down. This is what we used to do before there was television. Aren't you great that we now live in a digital age? You can turn on the radio, forget the hopscotch, you can listen to all kinds of things. Nicholas Parsons in his heyday. Who would have thought? Walk down memory lane, get the hopscotch thing, and you can do what you like. Where I live, we have this national hopscotch championship. Everybody joins in, from the tower blocks to the country cottages. It's wonderful. The Archbishop of Canterbury won one year, and he was up against the milkman. If you take a hard-boiled egg and an onion and try to put them in the same shell, you end up with something that's neither a hard-boiled egg or an onion.
So let me give you the final situation. Owen O'Neill, who hasn't played the game very much, did very well, but he did finish, but in a very strong 4th place. Pauline McLynn, who's only played a little before, I think once or twice, but she did very well, but a very powerful 3rd place. Clement Freud has been playing the show forever and did extraordinarily well and finished in a very dominant 2nd place. Out in the lead with a record number of points scored, 22 points. He must be the winner. Yes, Paul Merton. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and it only remains me to thank you. These 4 delightful players of the game, Paul Merton, Owen O'Neill, Pauline McLynn and Clement Freud. I thank Charlotte Davis, who's helped me with the score and blown her whistle whenever the time was up, even before sometimes. And we also thank our producer, Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this delightful game. We're grateful to this lovely audience here at the Fringe, at the Pleasance up in Edinburgh. They've been lovely. We've enjoyed playing it. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. But to our listeners, hope you've had a good time. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute! welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my pleasure to welcome my many listeners in this country and, of course, throughout the world, but also to welcome to the programme four skilled, exciting, attractive, interesting, talented players of the game who once again are going to display their verbal ingenuity, their humorous inventiveness as they try and speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And those four people are seated on my right, Pam Ayres and Clement Freud, and seated on my left, Graham Norton and Marcus Brigstock. Will you please welcome all four of them? And seated beside me is Charlotte Davies, who's going to help me keep the score, and she's going to blow a whistle with great aplomb, I'm sure, whenever the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the delightful Mermaid Theatre down near Blackfriars Bridge in the centre, or near the centre, of the City of London. And we have a real Blackfriars-looking audience in the audience who are going to cheer us on our way as we start the show with Clement Freud. Clement, the subject here is What I've Got on My iPod. Would you tell us something about that subject in this game, Clement, starting now?
I'm not very technologically...
As you've challenged.
I did think it was hesitation.
And I have to be strict within the rules of Just a Minute and say that it was hesitation, so I have to give it to you, and you take over the subject for a correct challenge, a point, and 57 seconds, What I've Got on My iPod, starting now.
Dire Straits, Money for Nothing, Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, Minnie Driver singing something I can't remember. There must be other things, but I can't remember.
I sensed a hesitation. There was an before the Minnie Driver thing.
No, there wasn't. No, there wasn't. That was my natural burr.
All right, we give it to the benefit of the doubt, I think, Graham, and you get a point for a correct challenge, and you have 48 seconds to tell us what I have got on my iPod starting now.
Audience, prepare to be riveted, because on my iPod, I have nothing at all. Let's stare at that tiny blank screen for the remainder of the minute. Imagine what songs I could...
Mine is much more interesting than his.
Can I just say, I beg to differ.
You said you got nothing at all
what I
on
often
it.
do on these occasions...
Minnie Driver, I'm not negative there.
Well, I was panic-stricken.
Minnie Driver's got Minnie Driver on her iPod.
Pam, what I like to do on this occasion, it's quite a long time ago, I know, but the audience enjoyed your interruption. We give you a bonus point for that.
Thank you.
But it was an incorrect interruption. So, Graham, you have a point for being interrupted. And you keep the subject, What I've Got on My iPod, 36 seconds, starting now.
Music was my first love. It will be my last. That's why my iPod is stuffed to bursting with super songs and tracks. You'll always
find... challenge.
Deviation.
Why? I think so.
He said he had nothing on it.
You had it nothing.
It was downloading while I was chatting to Pam.
No, Graham, you can't get out of it that way, even in this show. It was correct. It was deviation. You were firmly established to
Does
all
it matter that I don't have an iPod?
You established to the millions of listeners.
I was wrong to talk at all. I'm sorry.
No, if you shut up, the show would collapse. We love you. And, Clement, a correct challenge. 27 seconds. What I've got on my iPod, starting now.
An iPod is a tripod with only one leg. And normally what you put onto it would be a camera or a chicken sandwich or virtually anything which could balance on this contraption. I'm not technically logic.
Marcus, you
yes,
challenged
it was a hesitation.
It was a hesitation.
Although, in fairness to Clement, you got further into the word technological than you did the first time.
So, Marcus, what I've got on my iPod, you have 11 seconds starting now.
What I've got on my iPod, well, this morning I found my daughter sitting on it, but musically speaking, I have The Doors and Who and Cure. I also have the Crash Test Dummies on there, which is a band I absolutely adore.
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, was Marcus Brigstock. He's now equal with Pam Ayres in the lead, 2 to each of them, 1 to the other, to Clement and to Graham. And Marcus, we'd like you to take the next round. The subject is the world's greatest invention. Can you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
I would have to say the world's greatest invention is probably the iPod. On my iPod, I have many songs, including...
Clement Challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, there was a hesitation.
There was, yeah.
Yes. So, Clement...
I'm so pleased with myself, I ran out.
52 seconds for you, Clement, to tell us something about the world's greatest invention, starting now.
There are many people who think that the first telephone was the world's greatest invention.
Can you challenge first?
I did feel it was a hesitation that time. I was
how
successful
you spotted it. It was amazing perception of you. 44 seconds, Pam. The world's greatest invention, starting now.
I have invented the world's greatest invention, which is that the road moves and the cars stand still. At a stroke, this would solve all the unemployment because people would have to stand along the road and crank the handle.
Graham challenge.
A repetition of road.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Sorry
right,
about
yes.
that.
So, Graham, another correct challenge to you. 30 seconds available. The world's greatest invention, starting now.
It may seem slight, but I feel the world's greatest invention is surely the egg slicer. That lovely little plastic thing that cradles the thing that falls out of the chicken's bum.
Clement challenge.
2 things.
There were 2 things there.
Oh, I was avoiding egg.
Clement, you've got in with 18 seconds on the world's greatest invention, starting now.
The second telephone was the greatest.
He's absolutely right, but it was a repetition of telephone.
It was a repetition of telephone, yes. So, Marcus, you have got 16 seconds. Tell us something about the world's greatest invention, starting now.
I now believe that the world's greatest invention is almost certainly the corduroy suit. You know where you are when you're wearing one of these. In any weather, it soaks up a huge amount of water, which can be extremely useful if you suddenly get warm and need a drink. You can merely lean...
Marcus Brigstock was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's now equal in the lead with Clement Freud, but he's only 1 ahead of Pam Ayres and Graham Norton. And Pam, we'd like you to take the next round. I'm sure this has been chosen specially for you. Suet pudding. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
My husband and I, being extremely health conscious, normally choose plain, low-fat, probiotic Greek yoghurt for pudding, but as a girl, suet puddings like jam roly-poly, spotted dick, bacon clanger and old lady's leg were frequently served. These puddings were boiled up on the stove in an enormous...
Marcus, your challenge.
I'm sorry, it's not a legitimate challenge, but I have to know what goes into a bacon clanger.
Do you want to tell us in the round?
Yes, I'll tell you.
You tell us in the round, it's all right. But don't repeat bacon clanger, that's all.
Well, no, I'm confused now.
While we are chatting, an old lady's leg, is that just an old lady's leg?
No, that is when your mother...
Was it lean times?
yeah, exactly. It's when your mother hasn't got anything to put inside it, so it's just plain.
Oh,
and bacon clanger is bacon and onion, and croutons is carrots at one end and something at croutons
Let
at
me
the
get
other.
a pen.
Wait a minute.
1 second.
Pam, save it for the round, because it was an incorrect challenge. Well, it wasn't incorrect. It was an interruption.
Okay.
And so you get a point because you were interrupted, and you keep the subject, suet pudding, and there are 35 seconds starting now.
Mother would leave it to boil for the best part of the day.
Mark Clement challenge.
She has boiled.
You have boiled before, I'm afraid,
I
yes.
think I did boil, but I think I've peaked.
I think there was too long between. Clement, you've gone in on suet pudding. 32 seconds available, starting now.
The great thing about suet pudding, which looks rather unhealthy and pale and wan and white, is to put into it...
Graham challenge.
Now, this is harsh, but I do remember someone challenging at one point with or, so I'm going with and.
Yes, you're quite right. It was the last time we were recording here at the Mermaid.
What a coincidence! You couldn't make that up.
Well, that's when I have to memorize these things, you see. It was quite a while ago. And actually, Clement had you for putting in the word or 3 or 4 times.
I thought I remembered.
Yes, and you've now got him on and. It's taken a few weeks' break to get it, but there you are. You have 25 seconds. Tell us something about suet pudding starting now.
On the face of it, suet pudding sounds like fat for dessert. It really isn't an appetizing idea. I'm not really sure what suet is, but I know that I can say the word suet because suet's in the subject.
So, Pam, you challenged and you didn't realise that suet was in the subject.
No, I thought it was just puddings. I was grasping at a straw of suet there.
Well, I'm afraid it was
Sorry.
incorrect. So, another point to you, Graham, and 12 seconds. Suet pudding starting now.
Suet pudding is different from other puddings because it contains suet. That's right, you heard me. Suet. It's all over it. It's all through it. I've said all a few times. Go on, someone.
Marcus challenge.
Yeah, repetition of all.
Yes.
That's right. So, Marcus, you've got him with 2 seconds to go on suet. Suet pudding starting now.
If steak and kidney pudding is made from suet, which
Well, Marcus Brigstock was again speaking as a whistle went. At the end of that round, he has taken the lead.
My God.
1 ahead of Clement Freud, 2 ahead of Pam Ayres and Graham Norton. And Clement Freud, your turn to begin. The subject is my biggest fear. 60 seconds, as usual, starting now.
My biggest fear is to appear on a quiz show like University Challenge or Mastermind and be asked a question to which I do not know the answer, which everybody in the audience would. For instance, they say, what are the countries adjoining Austria? And the sort of answer I would give would be Czechoslovakia, Sweden.
Marcus challenge.
a repetition of the word answer.
And answer and answers. Right, 39 seconds. Clement, my biggest fear starting now.
Romania, Bulgaria, Slovenia, Austria, I've said before,
yes.
so I would like to say.
Repetition of Austria.
Yes, as well as the fact some of those other countries don't border Austria.
No, but he's getting the answer wrong.
I know, he's got the answer wrong. Wait.
Also, it did sound like he was just afraid of countries when he went back to him. Your biggest fear, Romania, Czechoslovakia. They're marching towards us, I tell you, they're moving.
Graham, you've got the subject of my biggest fear in 34 seconds, starting now.
My biggest fear is starving to death in my sleep. And that's why, before I go to bed, I do eat vast amounts of things you can put in your mouth that are edible. And I think it's because I'm from Ireland and we had a famine. And it never goes away, that fear, you know. It really doesn't. So I'll be boiling water and popping potatoes in while the national anthem...
I thought it was a hesitation.
After
boiling the potatoes, I thought you hesitated.
Just checking them.
Right. So, Pam, a correct challenge. You've got him with 5 seconds to go on my biggest fear, starting now.
My biggest fear is of walking up the road from the River Windrush up towards the...
So, Pam Ayres was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. Marcus Brigstock is still in the lead. 1 ahead of Clement Freud. He's 2 ahead of Pam Ayres, and she's 1 ahead of Graham Norton. If you care about the score, that's what it is. And we carry on with the show. Marcus Brigstock, your turn to begin. Can you tell us something about cosmic ordering in this game? Starting now.
Cosmic ordering is a lot like praying, and the only difference is that you're making a specific request for something. It's a lot like a sort of celestial eBay.
Graham, what's your challenge?
Repetition of a lot like.
Yes, it's a lot like. You're right, Graham. 52 seconds. Cosmic ordering is with you, Graham, starting now.
Noel Edmonds is perhaps the most famous exponent of cosmic ordering, where he writes things on his hand and then it becomes true. What a shame he didn't place the phrase, "Don't look like an aging gerbil with Simon Cowell's waistline," because then that might have happened. Instead, he wished for a new job and got it, and does it all the time. Does he live in that barn conversion with those people? It lasts for hours, and I've never seen the beginning of the programme. Who are the other people at the benches with the cases? Are they friends? Are they just random? Were they in the queue coming in?
Yes, Clement, you challenge.
3 Aves.
3 Aves. Are they? Yes, are they? So, Clement, another point to you and the subject, and 13 seconds, cosmic ordering starting now.
Cosmic ordering is a very good game. It beats Monopoly and Helmer. Ludo comes nowhere near cosmic ordering. I spend much of my time playing it with my children, my grand.
So Clement Freud was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and he's taken the lead, one ahead of Marcus Brigstock. The other two are trailing just a little behind in third place. And Pam, it's your turn to begin. A lovely subject for you, lambing. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
My Cotswold sheep, Myrtle and Florence, this year produced 2 lambs, Biggie and Litly. It is a very difficult and stressful period for the shepherdess, and she should make it her business to assemble a comprehensive lambing kit well beforehand. It should include bottles, teats, feeding tubes, a supply of iodine for immersing the navel to counteract infection, a supply of small orange blow.
Marcus challenge.
Blow.
Repetition of supply.
Yeah, I did say supply.
And also, I feel sick.
I can't give you any points for feeling sick, I'm sorry, Graham. Marcus, you've got the subject of lambing, and you have 29 seconds starting now.
I cannot confess to knowing a huge amount about lambing. I did, however...
Pam, challenge.
But I do.
Yeah. So give Pam a bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption. Marcus, you get a point because you were interrupted. You keep the subject, and there are 26 seconds, lambing starting now.
Lambing is something that I saw done on all...
Clement challenge.
2 somethings.
Oh, yes. You said the other time I don't know much. It's something I don't know very much about.
Oh.
Yes.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yes, so well listen, Clement.
Yeah.
24 seconds. Lambing is with you, Clement, starting now.
Ideally, to be successful at lambing requires you to be a sheep, which I am not. But it is a natural process. You meet a male of your species and a certain number of...
Graham challenged.
I'm sensing hesitation.
You've got a hesitation.
Did I get one? Okay.
Yes. Graham, tell us something about lambing. Right up your street, I'm sure. 10 seconds, starting now.
I have a very strong visual image now of Pam stripped to the waist with the sheep on its back, pulling lambs out of it, hand over fist.
Marcus challenged.
Yeah, there was a hesitation.
What's that?
Yes, you didn't know whether to say hand over fist or just what. Marcus, you had a correct challenge. You had 3 seconds. Tell us more about lambing in 3 seconds, starting now.
Normally they give birth to a little baby lamb, which is the most...
Marcus, speaking when the whistle almost went, has gained that extra point. He's now just ahead of Clement Freud, followed by Pam Ayres and Graham Norton in that order. And Graham, your turn to begin. And the subject now is Carnaby Street. Tell us something about Carnaby Street in this game, starting now.
Once upon a time, Carnaby Street was a hip, happening place full of trendy fashion shops. Now, it is somewhere for large groups of Italian students to go and stand in front of signs saying exit, just to annoy people who live here. And there's nothing to see.
Challenge.
I thought it was hesitation there. I thought Graham was struggling a little bit. If you don't
Thanks,
mind me
Pam.
saying so, Graham.
No, thanks, Pam.
So, Pam, and a correct challenge. 44 44 seconds. Do tell us something about Carnaby Street, starting now.
I trace my success as a fashion icon back to the 60s when I used to use a product called Bandbox, which was a peroxide solution sprayed upon the front of the beehive hairdo. I also used to buy a length of fabric from Wantage Market on Saturday morning, run it up on my sewing machine, tie a belt round it and wear it to the dance at the Victoria Cross Hall, Wantage, on a Saturday night.
Marcus challenge.
Yeah, repetition of wantage.
Wantage.
Oh,
yes.
yeah, you're right.
Yes, that's right. So, Marcus, another point to you, and you have 16 seconds. Tell us something about Carnaby Street, starting now.
I very seldom go down Carnaby Street on account of I don't like being pointed at and...
Sorry.
Uh,
I picked this.
Well, he was interrupted.
I'll give him several points, but...
He doesn't need several, he's way out in the lead. But you were actually interrupted, so you do get another point, and you have now 12 seconds, Carnaby Street, starting now.
You can buy all manner of fancy goods on Carnaby Street, from enormous frilly hats to spotted loon pants, high-heeled platform stack shoes, tops with spangly...
So, Marcus Brigstock, speaking again as a whistle when gained the extra point. He's now increased his lead ahead of the other three. And Clement Freud, will you please take the next round? The subject is chips. Tell us something about chips in this game, starting now.
In golf, chips are an absolute disaster, because if you get your ball fairly close to the hole, one chip is all you would need. Chips show that you are unable to hit an 8 or 9 iron in the proper fashion. Chips are also potatoes, which can be fried at best in a mixture of duck and goose fat. And depending on the size...
Graham challenged.
Now, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think you are.
But don't chips have to be fried?
Yes, they are fried, but he said preferably in goose.
No,
duck
he
fat.
said chips which can be fried, preferably in the oven.
He was trying to make
fried.
the point. As far as I'm concerned as chairman, he was trying to make the point that is his preference for
As
frying.
chairman, I respect you fully.
You
He
are
means they
absolutely
can
charming.
be fried in rape oil.
Yeah. Are you feeling all right, Pam?
God, it's rough in the country, isn't it?
Clement, an incorrect challenge. You keep the subject. 32 seconds. Chips is still with you, starting now.
The very thick ones in France are called pompons neufs, followed by frites, which are thinner, allumettes, which are yet more thin, and pie, which are of hardly any circumference at all. As a cook, which I was many years ago at the Dorchester, working in the vegetable department, it was my duty to stand over the frying pan, which was deep and then contained rather poor quality corn oil, to submerge...
Marcus challenged.
Hasn't there been a repetition of oil?
Yes,
No.
goose fat. No, it was goose fat, he said before.
Oh, yes.
Yes, no. So, an incorrect challenge. Clement another point, and he has half a second on chips, starting now.
Technologically...
So, Clement Freud was then speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point, and he's just behind Marcus Brigstock, and they're both just ahead of Pam Ayres and Graham Norton.
I'm always last.
Dolly, we don't have you at the point. We're here because we love you, and your contributions are so beautiful and
I am
humane.
yes, and I am such a looker.
The subject now is baboons, and Marcus will... And Marcus, it's your turn to begin. And there are 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I hardly know where to start with this particular subject, given what you've just done to lovely Pam over there, but I will say that baboon is probably my favourite of all of the primates on account of its fantastically bright bottom. I've often wished that I could have something as spectacular as...
Clement challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes.
Oh.
No, I don't think he hesitated.
Back off, audience!
It's awfully sweet of you. I have to say, I thought I hesitated, so it's Clement and I against you.
No, I don't think you hesitated.
You don't? Good. Well, as long as you don't, you're the chairman, I'll crack on.
No,
then.
you have the benefit of the doubt on this occasion, and you have 44 seconds for baboons starting now.
I've often wished that my back end could...
Graham Norton.
Phew. Repetition of often.
Yes, that's right. You've often wanted to do this with baboons. Right. Graham, tell us something about baboons. There are 42 seconds left, starting now.
Baboons are the spawn of the devil planted on Earth. They are vile creatures. I go to Cape Point, and they have these baboons there in South Africa, and they're just evil. Have I said evil?
Yes. Pam, yes.
I think it's a repetition of evil.
Yes.
But you can't say it enough.
No.
Also,
No,
to be fair,
Sam.
the first time he said evil, second time he said evil.
I was just remembering them. Oh.
Absolutely. Right, 28 seconds, Pam. Baboons starting now.
Speaking as a baboon lookalike, I have often thought that visits to the zoo can be very, very embarrassing.
Clement Challenge.
bugger.
It is very, very embarrassing, no. Very, very right, Clement. Correct challenge. 20 seconds, baboons starting now.
I don't know any baboons, nor have I met people, but somebody once said...
Graham challenge.
You must have met someone.
It's past my bedtime.
So, Graham, you have 15 seconds, baboons starting now.
I came back to my car to find a baboon sitting on the roof where it had done, I'm sorry, a very large poo. It's not the sort of thing you want after a picnic, but I dealt with it quietly and efficiently.
And at the end of the round, it's a very close contest. In fourth place, strangely enough, surprisingly, because he does so well, was Graham Norton. And just ahead of him was Pam Ayres in third place. She says she comes last. She doesn't. She comes in third place. Clement Freud almost got out into the lead. He was pipped by 1 point by Marcus Brigstock. So we say, this week, Marcus, you are the winner. So it only remains to say thank you to these four delightful players of the game, Graham Norton, Marcus Brigstock, Pam Ayres and Clement Freud. I thank Charlotte Davis, who's helped me with the score. She's blown her whistle delicately and charmingly when the 60 seconds elapsed. We thank our producer-director, Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created the game, and we're very grateful to this lovely audience here at the Mermaid Theatre down in Puddle Dock. From the audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and our panel, goodbye. And listeners, please tune in for next time we play Just a Minute.
And you can hear more from Nicholas Parsons at the same time next week when he's joined in Bournemouth for the last in the series by Paul Merton, Ross Noble, Tim Rice and Clement Freud, if he's allowed to stay up that late. 6:30 next Monday evening.
Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners in this country and round the world. But of course, to welcome to the show 4 individual, exciting, skillful players of the game who've come together to show off their surreal humour as they try and talk on a subject that I give them, and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And those 4 are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Clement Freud, and seated on my left, Ross Noble and Tim Rice. Will you please welcome all 4 of them? Thank you. Beside me sits Charlotte Davis. She's going to help me with the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Pavilion Theatre, which is in that beautiful, lovely, warm resort of Bournemouth on the Hampshire coast. And... What's that? It was when I was a little boy. Just to keep the recording going, I said that to make sure the audience were alive and awake. And now we've established we have an audience here, can I just say that this particular show is coming from the Pavilion Theatre in that lovely resort of Bournemouth in that amazing county of Dorset.
With Moon?
And we're going to begin the show this week with Clement Freud. Clement, the subject is Thomas Hardy. Tell us something about Thomas Hardy in this game, starting now.
Thomas Hardy is a very good West Country name. It is, in fact, awash with Thomas Hardys. In the 18th century, the captain of the Victory, the boat or ship, if you like, on which Nelson died.
Tim challenged.
I'm afraid there was a hesitation just when it was getting interesting.
I don't think you should rub it in, Tim. There are 47 seconds available, starting now.
I always get rather annoyed by Thomas Hardy because he sets his work in a fictitious area, which is not quite where you want it to be. One always feels that town A should be really B.
And Ross challenged.
It was hesitation?
Yes, it should be town A, should be town B, and you didn't want to say town again. Ross had a correct challenge, so he gets a point for that. 34 seconds, Ross. Tell us something about Thomas Hardy, starting now.
I went to school with a kid called Thomas Hardy who was rubbish at writing. In fact, he used to get his conkers and he would throw them around the place, and that's no basis for literary works. In fact, some people say...
Tim challenged.
I think we had two in facts, didn't we?
Yes, you did at the beginning. In fact, I went to school with a boy called Thomas Hardy, and in fact, well listened, Tim. Right. 22 seconds. Thomas Hardy's back with you, Tim, starting now.
Thomas Hardy's big mistake after quite a successful literary career was teaming up with Stan Laurel and making a lot of movies.
Paul Merton challenged.
Well, we had this, but Deviation, they were the most popular double act in the movies, Thomas Hardy and Stan Laurel. How could that be seen as a mistake?
Anyway, this was a repetition, so Paul, a correct challenge. 14 seconds for you. Tell us something about Thomas Hardy, starting now.
I remember a double act that Thomas Hardy formed with Stanley Baldwin, who was then Prime Minister in the 1930s. What a fantastic team they were. They used to come on at the beginning of the news saying, I can't say... Aye.
That's your lot. Right, Ross, you challenge first.
So who did I go to school with then?
He's living his life backwards.
It was a hesitation.
What is your challenge? Yes, it was. When the rules adjustment, hesitation. You got in with 4 seconds ago, Ross, on Thomas Hardy, starting now.
Big shoes, that's what he often wore. In those days, it was very popular to...
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion was Ross Noble. He has 3 points at the end of the round. So has Tim Rice. Paul has 1. Clement has yet to score. And Ross, I think you should take the next round. Doing a runner. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
I once tried to do a runner in a revolving restaurant, and unfortunately it meant that I stayed on the same spot. They turned up the machinery, and the chef was able to reach across and smack me on the head with a ladle. The police would have been called, but unfortunately the ladle squad had not been...
Tim challenge.
A pair of ladles.
It was,
yes. The ladle came back in again. Right. 43 seconds are still available, Tim, for you to tell us about doing a runner, starting now.
I was never really gripped by Ross's story there because...
Ross challenged.
I just took offence.
Actually, it was a very good story for just a minute. So we give Ross a bonus point for the insult as well as the hurt. But Tim, you keep the subject because you were interrupted. You have 40 seconds available. Doing a runner, starting now.
Doing a runner is the coward's way out of a difficult situation.
Ross challenged, but I must explain to our listeners the reason there was that laughter and reaction is because Tim decided to illustrate how to do a runner. Ross, I know what your challenge was. 36 seconds, doing a runner with you, starting now.
Doing a runner is something that Olympic groupies all try to do, hanging around the village, possibly finding themselves somebody from the 100 metres or possibly twice the length of that. They will stand there and see them cross the finish line and approach them and attempt to be with that particular athlete after the whole thing has ended. And if they're successful, they might live together in a harmonious...
Oh, the look on his face as he struggled to keep going with that rubbish. It was... Paul, you challenged.
It was a bit like Stephen Hawking towards the end, wasn't it?
Anyway, we call it hesitation. Paul. 10 seconds, doing a runner starting now.
The best way to do it.
Well, he's just copying, isn't he?
No, he isn't.
No, it was...
He was doing an impersonation of somebody else, I think.
He was hawking it up.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
He was deviating from his normal voice.
I know he was, but you can do that in just a minute. It's nothing in the rules which forbids it.
Oh.
You can take as many voices as you like in one particular round.
Oh, well,
in the old days,
I
Kenneth
didn't
Williams.
know that.
In the old days, Kenneth Williams would suddenly use 3 voices within the space of one round. And am I going too far back? It doesn't matter. 9 seconds, Paul, that's correct challenge. An incorrect challenge. I'll point to you. 9 seconds, doing a runner starting now.
I remember the very first time. It was at the Savoy Hotel. I was wearing black, you were wearing green.
Clement Freud challenge.
2 wearings.
2 wearing black and wearing green. So Clement's got in with 1 second to go on doing a runner starting now.
No.
Paul challenged.
Hesitation.
No. Well tried. Another point to Clement. Half a second, Clement, starting now.
Marathon.
That long pause before the whistle was because Charlotte was laughing so much she nearly swallowed her whistle, and she came in a bit late. But it doesn't matter. Clement was speaking when the whistle should have gone, and he has that point for doing so. He's now in 3rd place, but they're only, with Paul, only 1 point behind Tim. Tim's 1 point behind Ross. If you are interested in the points, some people are. And I'm glad you feel like that. Tim, would you take the next round? Oh, this is interesting. 3 things you never knew about dolphins. They do think of some bizarre subjects, don't they? Anyway, there's the subject. Go with it, Tim, best you can. 60 seconds, starting now.
3 things you never knew about dolphins. One of them is that no dolphin has yet stood for Parliament. There are several reasons for this, but they're rather boring, so I won't go into them at the moment. The second fact that very few people have
Clement challenge.
Few.
Repetition, 48 seconds available, Clement. 3 things you never knew about dolphins, starting now.
I never knew anything about dolphins, so it is extremely difficult.
Paul challenge.
They swim in the sea. You must have known that, so that's deviation. You must know something about dolphins. God, I know nothing about dolphins.
Now, that's quite a good challenge, isn't it?
Just?
No.
On the other hand, he could justify it by saying he didn't even know that, but I don't think Clement is that ignorant.
No.
I think he's a very intelligent man.
I think so,
So
too.
I have to give you the benefit of the doubt, Paul.
Yeah.
And I'll try and redress the balance later if I can, Clement. So, Paul, you have the benefit. You have 44 seconds. 3 things you never knew about dolphins, starting now.
As dolphins approach the beach here...
Sorry,
Yes.
it was a hesitation.
It was a hesitation. 43 seconds still available. 3 things you never knew about dolphins, Ross, starting now.
A lot of people don't realise that dolphins love to wear hats. This is a shame for them because they tend to...
Tim challenge.
I don't think that's true.
No, Tim.
Actually,
you give a bottlenose a trilby, it's very happy. Very happy.
Unfortunately, I don't... The thing is, if you watch them in some of these dolphinariums...
They're wearing hats, aren't they?
Yeah. No, they're not. They're not wearing hats. But the trainer puts a hat on them when they leap up, and they put a hat on them.
That's only one of them's getting married.
I love your bizarre humour, but it's not getting you anywhere in this particular round.
I'll shut up.
I have to give the benefit of the doubt on this occasion to Ross. So, Ross, you were the one who said about wearing hats, wasn't it? 38 seconds, 3 things you never knew about dolphins, starting now.
The problem is they put them over their blowholes, and when they breathe out, they fly up in the air, and everyone thinks that it's like at the end of a football match in the olden days. Hurrah! But it isn't. You'd be very wrong to think that, because they have no concept.
Paul challenge.
Repetition of think.
You should be wrong to think, yes. 26 seconds for you, Paul, on 3 things you never knew about dolphins, starting now.
They move towards Bournemouth Beach and they say, the coast of Dorset. One of them says, this used to be in Hampshire, you know. Really? That's one of the things that dolphins know. As they come all the way from Tanzania back to Norfolk on that train journey, which...
Clement challenge.
Repetition.
Of what?
I don't know.
But Paul was interrupted, so he keeps the subject. 3 things you never knew about dolphins. 13 seconds, Paul, starting now.
Mathematical equations are enough to test any average bottlenose's ability.
Ross challenge.
Repetition of bottle. Bottlenose. You had a bottlenose before.
Yeah, but that wasn't my...
But he wasn't in the round. He was talking about a bottlenose outside when he was speaking on the subject.
Oh, well, that's very devious, that.
Also, it was bottle noses rather than bottle nose.
Doesn't matter. So he didn't...
Might not matter to you.
He didn't repeat it.
It does if you're in an off licence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You want a bottle of wine, you get a dolphin.
Right. Oh, we love this. Enjoy the idle banter, but Paul, within the rules of just a minute, it was incorrect. You have 7 seconds. Carry on with 3 things you never knew about dolphins, starting now.
I went to the off-licence and ordered a pack of 6 dolphins. The man looked at me curiously, said, "Do you know this is a particular brand of beer that shouldn't be drunk in this country?" I said, "I don't care."
So Paul had a number of points in that round, including 1 for speaking as the whistle went, and he's moving to the lead, 1 ahead of Ross Noble, and he's 3 ahead of Clement Freud and Tim Rice in that order. And Paul, I think you should take the next round. I think it's your turn, and you've had a bit of a lion's share of the show so far, but funnily enough, that is the next subject. The lion's share. 60 seconds, starting now.
The lion's share, of course, is the larger piece of the cake, and you can hear the siren coming towards me now because Nicholas, I'm afraid, has been up to his old tricks again. He's been staring into old ladies' windows.
Tim challenge.
Well, deviation and frankly...
Well, don't tell me about it, tell him.
What is your...
Well, deviation, he was talking about your personal problems rather than the lion's share. He got right off the topic of the lion's share.
But he gets his lion's share looking at old ladies through windows.
Can I have repetition? He said old twice, old ladies, old
I
tricks.
know you did, but unfortunately you can't have a second challenge. So
no, he had the first challenge.
It's too late now, Ross.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry. It is for those old
though
ladies.
it is an utterly devious thought, within the rules of just a minute, he wasn't actually deviating, because he can say that and let people think in some weird fantasy way I might be capable of such a devious thought, but...
Excuse me, you've asked to borrow my ladder.
I'm with you, Paul, still. 49 seconds, the lion's share, starting now.
I went to Africa once and I was looking at the lions walking in their natural habitat. It's very strange. You get up about just before dawn and you walk around this place. It looks unlike a little bit...
Clement challenge.
Deviation.
Why?
Lions aren't allowed into habitat.
Presumably you mean the shop, and presumably you are right, but it's not a challenge within the rules of just a minute. But we enjoyed what you said, Clement. Another bonus point to you. Paul was interrupted, and there are 40 seconds, the lion's share, starting now.
If you look at this panel show that we have in front of us now, we have 4 contestants and the wonderful Nicholas Parsons all have microphones to address...
Tim challenge.
Repetition of Nicholas Parsons.
No, he's never mentioned my... Oh, yes, he did.
Of course he did.
Of course. Well, listen, yes.
I was cruelly denied.
Yes, you were cruelly denied it then last time. Shows you how modest I am. You mention my name, I forget it immediately. Yeah. Tim, correct challenge, 32 seconds, the lion's share, starting now.
Nicholas Parsons deserves the lion's share of the credit for the enormous success of this brilliant programme, which I am...
I'm afraid Clement Freud is challenged.
Yes. And 4 people clapped.
Clement.
Creep.
Well, there's nothing against creeping in just a minute. You can creep as much as you like. And
not that much. No.
You're not getting very far, Clement. I think I'd lay off. Tim, an incorrect challenge. So, 24 seconds for the lion's share with you, starting now.
Another shining light of this superb output.
Last challenge.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. I know what he was going to say. He was going to play and praise someone else, but didn't get to it. Ross, you've got in 21 seconds, the lion's share, starting now.
They certainly do, because they're a rugby team, and that's the way the game works. Lion's share, obviously, I've done it wrong, haven't I? Look at that.
That's sort of hesitation, really.
It's packing it up, so it's hesitation. Sadly. 13 seconds, back with you, Paul. The lion's share, starting now.
I'm so pleased to talk about the lion's share, because when you actually think about it, isn't that the share that's worth having? The one that's bigger than everybody else's? Don't worry about democracy. Buy your own island. Me and Clement Freud, together.
So Paul Merton got that extra point for speaking as the whistle went, and others in the round. He's increased his lead ahead of Ross Noble and Clement, Freud and Tim Rice, so equal in third place. Clement, it's back with you. We'd like you to take the next subject. It's doodles. Tell us something about doodles in this game, starting now.
Doodles is something artists do, but if you are a wordsmith, cauliflower, microbiology, mathematics, algebra, are the sort of doodles which, if you didn't have a pencil or pen, let alone paper, you might verbally entertain people with. Now, one should...
What sort of party is this? Do we have any music? No. I'm just going to do some mathematical equations out loud to entertain you. A equals X minus B squared. Oh, Clement, you spoil us.
Have some more cauliflower. Right,
Deviation.
Paul. Deviation, yes. You have a point for that. A point for your little charade there, which they loved. 37 seconds you have got, though. Now for Doodles, starting now.
When I lived in a bedsit, I had my own little pet, Doodles the pick pony. He was a wonderful creature, but he used to get his hooves through the pillowcases. Every day I would take him down to the local park and let Doodles run free as nature intended. Clip-clopping up the hill, his little maney head would turn to me, almost as if to say, thank you for letting me free from that previous...
Ross challenged.
Repetition of free?
Yes, when he was free.
Well, he's a free spirit. A free spirit.
Yes, well, listen, Ross, he does repeat free.
I miss him as well. I do miss him.
He tasted good.
There are 16 seconds still available. Ross, carry on. No, carry on. Take over. Doodles, starting now.
To chefs, doodles are evil noodles. They're placed into the pan, and instead of simmering up nicely, you'll just hear them under their breath making horrible ooh-type noises. And they'll rise up against you, and they'll fight you, and they'll knock you to the floor.
Wait a minute. Clement challenge.
3 U's.
You.
That's almost a flop.
Rise up against you. But it was a correct challenge.
Yeah, it was.
And you've got in with half a second to go, Clement. Doodles, starting now.
Poodles are poodles.
A lot of points are being scored in this particular edition of Just a Minute, and Ross Noble got one for speaking as a whistle went. He's one ahead of Clement, and I say it's Ross's turn to begin. Ross, the subject is the Jurassic Age. 60 seconds starting now.
I used to love dinosaurs when I was a kid. Unfortunately, I was born in the 70s and they'd all died out. And that meant that my dad had to go out and buy papier-mâché, and he would smear it all over a dog and have it run around the place pretending to be a Triceratops or a Diplodocus. I'm never sure whether that's how it's pronounced or whether or not it's Diplodocus. I think...
Tim challenge.
Repetition of that word.
Which one?
Well, the one that he pronounced in 2 different ways.
No, the second one was his name, Diplodocus. His real name was Dennis Plodicus.
Right.
Yeah.
But actually, Tim, we've never actually had this challenge in Just a Minute. If you've taken a certain word, a long word, and pronounced it in quite a different way, whether that is repetition. Because I think we go on repetition of the word as we've heard it.
Yes.
So I think I have to give the benefit of the doubt to Ross on this occasion. But thank you for your interesting challenge. Ross, another point to you. 37 seconds. The Jurassic Age starting now.
I'm not a big fan of pterodactyls. In fact, my favourite of the dactyl is the happy dactyls. Before they called it the Jurassic Age, it was just going to be called Big Lizard Time.
Paul challenge.
Too called.
Yes, before they called it, it was going to be called. Right. Paul, you have the correct challenge. Sorry. 27 seconds, Paul. The Jurassic Age starting now.
When I look over at Nicholas, I suddenly think of the Jurassic Age. And I don't know why that should be. Maybe because there's an elegant gracefulness in the way that he moves that reminds you of very big dead reptiles. I'm sure that must be the case. It simply has to be. The Jurassic Age has spawned many films over the years. Arthur Conan Doyle wrote the first book called The Lost World in 1924, and that was made into a Hollywood flicker of those era.
So Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle when again that extra point, and he's increased his lead ahead of Ross Noble, not much, but Clement Freud follows in third place, and then Tim Rice. And Tim, we'd like you to take the next round. The subject is Pandora's Box. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
Epimetheus and his lady Pandora were lounging around, the world just having been created, when this box appeared, delivered by Mercury, winged messenger of the gods, or Gauds, as some people call it. Furthermore, this chap, also known in Greek as Hermes, said to Pandora, "Whatever you do, doll, do not open this."
Ross, challenge.
It was a repetition of Pandora. It's Pandora's box, and it was Pandora.
Yeah, but it's apostrophe S. So you have Pandora.
Well said, Nicholas. Brilliant.
I thought it was Pandora's box, but so I can't have just Pandora.
No, you can't just have Pandora, because Pandora is there. They put the apostrophe S in. So it's Pandora's or Pandora. You can have either.
I apologise wholeheartedly.
So, Tim, you have the benefit of the doubt if it's necessary. That I said I would do it to you. 35 seconds. Pandora's box starting now.
Round the box was a golden cord, or cood, as some people say.
Clement Challenge.
A repetition of, or some people call it.
Yes, some people call it, yes. You say it went God and God, that's some people call it. Now, that's why it's such a wicked game, because you were going so well and they were loving it, God or God, and now they're there. So, Clement, correct challenge, 30 seconds. Pandora's box, starting now.
The box, or what, as some people call it, contained all the great qualities which the gods had decided to give to their favourite Pandora. And when it was opened, the absolute mayhem which was caused to the world, or world, as some people call it.
You've challenged.
Repetition of some people.
You're quite right, yes. You started something, Tim, which has been taken up and used to great effect. But so you've got the subject back deliberately. Pandora's box, 11 seconds, starting now.
All these evil things came flying out of the box.
Ross challenge.
Was that repetition of things?
Yes, he did talk about the things before in the box. So, well listened, Ross. You have 8 seconds. Pandora's box starting now. You were challenged. I don't know why. Paul, what was your challenge?
A repetition of qua.
I don't know what you were trying to convey, Ross, but you certainly did repeat qua. And Paul, you've gone in.
I thought no one would notice, but you know.
Yeah, there we are. You have 3 seconds, Paul. Pandora's box starting now.
As the bowler eyed up the opposition, he realised one thing.
So Paul was again speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. He's increased his lead at the end of the round, and we're going into the final round. I'll give you the situation as we go into that round. Tim Rice, he's now in quite a strong 4th place, actually, but don't think he has much chance of getting out of the lead. Clement Freud is in 3rd place, lingering a little behind Ross Noble in a very strong 2nd place, but out in the lead is Paul Merton, as he also, it's his turn to begin. So, Paul, the subject now is a fish out of water. We'll talk on that subject in this game starting now.
A fish out of water, a dolphin in a hat shop. There's all kinds of places you can find where you are out of place. For example, if you were to see the Pope in a lap dancing club, you'd say, well, I've seen better strippers, but here's a £5, stick it in his hat.
Tim, you've challenged.
Repetition of hat. Dolphin in a hat shop, and then Pope.
Stick it in your hat.
Oh, sorry, I should have said hat shoop.
Yes.
Heart.
I should have
said heart, yeah.
In your heart.
Never mind.
Just why did you tend to stick in his cassock? Tim, correct challenge.
I don't know him that well, to be honest.
45 seconds. A fish out of water, starting now.
Sven-Göran Eriksson, in my opinion, is a fish out of water because he was not British. He was not.
He was not.
Not it. He was not it.
2 knots.
2 knots, yes, he was. And he got. Oh, I won't go into it. Right, 39 seconds. A fish out of water, Paul, starting now.
But if you are a fish out of water, there's always room to improve and learn new skills. For example, if you saw a HGV lorry driver, grade 3 perhaps, start in a ballet class, you'd say to yourself, well, he has absolutely no chance. But then Margot Fontaine couldn't drive a truck. So it's all horses for courses. I was once a fish out of water when I first appeared on this show. Just a minute.
Clement challenge.
Nothing has changed.
And you thought he was your friend?
No, yes. I never thought that.
Clement, it was a wicked but very funny remark. We give you a bonus point for that. Paul was interrupted, so he gets a point for that. He keeps the subject, a fish out of water. 17 seconds, Paul, starting now.
Imagine the scene. It's twilight outside an old lady's home somewhere in Boscombe. Nicholas Parsons comes up the drive, his cravat glinting in the moonlight. His silver jacket is looking superb as he knocks on her window and looks inside into the murky interiors and then removes his suit.
Right. Paul, saved by the whistle. We didn't want... No, you didn't tell them what I removed. Right. I'll give you the final situation. Tim Rice, he was only 2 points behind Clement Freud. He was only 2 points behind Ross Noble. But Ross was quite a few points behind Paul Merton. So this week we say, Paul, you are our winner. Thank you. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine, funny players of the game, Paul Merton, Ross Noble, Tim Rice and Clement Freud. I thank Charlotte Davis, who sat beside me and blown her whistle with such elegance and helped me with the score. We thank our producer, director, and that is Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this game, and we're very grateful to this lovely audience here at the Pavilion Theatre in Bournemouth, who have been absolutely marvellous. We've loved playing to you. We've loved the show. From our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and from our lovely panel, goodbye. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute.